Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wassalam ala abdillahi wa rasulihi nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Amma ba'd. So we're continuing with Surah Fatir. We're a little bit late starting today, but there's no change in the start time of the class. We just sometimes it gets done on time and sometimes there's issues going on. If we can start from just the Arabic and the English without any explanation, just go back a couple of ayat. ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا. Just to get the context, because the context is really important. Sometimes you can't just take an ayah like that, like from the middle. You need at least a little bit of context so that you know what it is that is being said and what context it's being said in that.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا والمستمعين ولجميع المسلمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قال الله تعالى ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم لنفسه ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. Then we cause to inherit the book those we have chosen of our servants. And among them is he who wrongs himself. And among them is he who is moderate. And among them is he who is foremost in good deeds by permission of Allah. That inheritance is what is the great bounty.
So we said moderate here is not the best word for it. If we said average or we said someone who is between the two.
جنات عدن يدخلونها يحلون فيها من أساور من ذهب ولؤلؤا ولباسهم فيها حرير. For them are gardens of perpetual residence, which they will enter. They will be adorned therein with bracelets of gold and pearls, and their garments therein will be silk.
We said two important things in the ayah. Number one, that when you leave something for Allah in this dunya, Allah Azza wa Jal will give you a replacement for it in the akhirah. So leaving alcohol, they will drink wine in Jannah. Leaving the wearing of gold and silk, so they will wear gold and silk in Jannah. Naam. Leaving a zina, so Allah Azza wa Jal will give them the hur al-ain, and so on. Also, from the benefits of the ayah is that there is nothing in Jannah from that which is in the dunya except for names. So the gold of Jannah is not the gold of this dunya. And the silk of Jannah is not the silk of this dunya. And the pearls of Jannah are not the pearls of this dunya. And we mentioned the hadith, مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. And Abdullah ibn Abbas has a tafsir like that. There is nothing in this dunya from what is in Jannah except names. Any gold and gold, milk and milk, alcohol and alcohol, but the two, or wine and wine, but the two are not the same at all. Because Jannah is a place of perfection. And what is in this dunya is imperfect. Yani. Milk goes sour, goes bad, curdles. Any wine causes you to become intoxicated.
وقالوا الحمد لله الذي أذهب عنا الحزن إن ربنا لغفور شكور. And they will say, praise to Allah who has removed from us all sorrow. Indeed, our Lord is forgiving and appreciative.
Now, all causes of al-hazan, there is no hazan in Jannah. That means there is no depression, there is no sadness, there is no grief. Like in umuman, there are three words that you need to know which are kind of time specific. Al-hazan or al-huzn, one is stronger than the other. They are both related to the past. So whenever you have the word hazan or huzn, those words generally are related to the past, being sad, grieving over something that happened to you in the past. And generally, al-gham is something that you are dealing with Al-gham is something you're dealing with now, at this moment in time. And it's called al-gham. That's what you're dealing with right now. And as for the future, al-ham, and ham is what you're worried about. Ham is what you're worried about. So we said al-ham is worrying about the future. And likewise, al-khawf often comes, often but not always. Al-khawf often comes about, well, generally yes, al-khawf comes about the future, sahih, it does. And al-khawf comes about the future because you're scared about something that has yet to happen to you. So when Allah said, لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, means they're not scared of what is going to happen to them, and they're not sad about what has been left behind or what has passed. So Allah causes all of the grief, al-hazan. And some of them said al-hazan is worse than al-huzn. And some of them said it is ashad, it's worse, it's more severe. All grief and sorrow, misery, all of it, Allah caused it to go from the people of Jannah. And we heard elsewhere in the Qur'an, وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِم مِّن غِلٍّ. All of the bad feeling between people in their hearts will be gone. Because even between the brothers and sisters, there can be some bad feeling. Sahih, between people, some clashes of personality, some, that's why you have the qantara yawm al-qiyamah. The qantara is a raised platform which happens after the sirat. Now there's a qa'idah, anyone who passes the sirat is from the people of Jannah, right? If you pass the sirat and you got to the end of the sirat, فَالظَّاهِرِ يعني وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ, that person is from the people of Jannah. Like in between the people of Jannah, there are madhalim, wrongs have been done, people did backbiting, and there were evil in people's hearts towards jealousy, hatta even between the people of Jannah. So at the qantara, these issues are made fair. In either forgiveness, raising the levels of paradise, and the matter is settled between the believers. وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِم مِّن غِلٍّ. All of the bad feeling in their heart is taken away. So they have no grief, they have no worry over what they left behind, and they have no resentment, no animosity, no bad feeling between the people of Jannah.
الذي أحلنا دار المقامة من فضله لا يمسنا فيها نصب ولا يمسنا فيها لغوب. He who has settled us in the home of duration out of his bounty, that touches us not in any fatigue, and that touches us not in its weariness of mind.
And weariness now. I think the home of duration doesn't make sense, right? Like nobody can understand what that means. In the home of everlasting stay, I like that. That's a very good translation from the clear Qur'an. The home that will last forever, from the translation of Sheikh Taqiyuddin Hilali, Ahsan Khan. It's also very, very good. In the place, the place of stay which will last forever, will not be touched in it by any fatigue or any weariness. Neither fatigue of the body or the mind. Neither will the body be tired, nor will the mind be weary and stressed about anything. Afwan, there's a fa'idah here in relation to what they asked Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, when will you rest? Look at the work you're doing in this world. When are you going to take a day off? When's your day off going to be? Which day are you going to say, today I'm not going to teach and I'm just going to have a day off? And he said, words to the effect of, when these feet are planted in Jannah, when my right foot enters paradise, I'll take a day off then. For that's sahih, that's how the believer should be. That, this whole idea of I need a holiday and I need a rest, and we're not making something forbidden that Allah didn't make forbidden. Like the mentality of the believer is, when you're going to take your day off, is that day that your foot enters Jannah. Then you have an unlimited time off after that. And after that, it's Darul Jaza, the place of you getting your reward for the hard work you did in this dunya. For it doesn't make sense for a person who hopes to have that to be very lazy and lacking in this world. Because this world is how long? The average age of the ummah is between 60 and 70 years. That's authentic from the Prophet ﷺ. The average age of the ummah, on average, most of the ummah will live between 60 and 70 years old, as an average. 60 years, let's call it right bang in the middle. 65. Let's take off 15 years to reach puberty, approximately. How long do you have? 50 years, 55 years, 60 years of on average. Wallahi, it's nothing. All of the efforts you make there depends on the rewards you get afterwards. But if someone told you in your job, you're going to get 10 times your salary for all the days you work this month, and next month you can take whatever days off you want, would you not spend this month working every single minute of the day so you could get that 10 times your salary? Someone said you'll get 10 times your salary for every hour you work this month. You would literally work every hour except what you desperately needed to sleep. Because you know that next month I can take the time off. This world is very, very short, wallahi. And if some of us are sitting here, we've gone through 25 years, yani if Allah Azza wa Jal extends our life, what do you have left? The person needs, the hard work is here, and the rest is in Jannah.
والذين كفروا لهم نار جهنم لا يقضى عليهم فيموتوا ولا يخفف عنهم من عذابها كذلك نجزي كل كفور. And for those who disbelieve will be the fire of hell. Death is not decreed for them, so they may die, nor will its torment be lightened for them. Thus do we recompense every ungrateful one.
Now that's the reality of kufr, right? Have you noticed the way that the word disbelief, kufr, is the same word used for ingratitude? In all the ni'am of Allah, how many surahs have we heard where Allah tells you about the blessings of Allah? الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ, the ones that Allah Azza wa Jal bestowed His blessings upon. How many times Allah mentions His blessings? And to disbelieve in Him is the greatest example of ingratitude. And these people, إِنْ يَأْتِيهِ الْمَوْتِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَكَانٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِمَيِّتٍ. Death comes to him from every place, but he doesn't die. Meaning everything that happens to him is something that would kill a person, but he can't die. And you imagine somebody who does something, for example, they burn وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, in a fire. They get burnt in a fire. The person, whatever they endure it for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, and they die. And they die from the heat of the fire, from the burns, from the shock, from the smoke, they die. Can you imagine, wallahi, even a day where you're burnt continuously and you don't die? Rather, the pain doesn't even numb. You don't even get a numbing of the pain. Like people say, when you go through an extreme trauma, the pain can numb for a while, out of any adrenaline or out of the fact that your skin became so harmed that you lost the pain. You don't feel pain after that. Like, and they feel the pain as though it was the first moment, and they feel it forever. وَيَأْتِيهِ الْمَوْتُ مِنْ كُلِّ مَكَانٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِمَيِّتٍ. But he doesn't die. Rather, Allah Azza wa Jal extends for eternity a new skin after a new skin after a new skin, لِيَذُوقَ الْعَذَابِ, so that he can taste the punishment. Now, I want to highlight something also here. We talk about the kuffar, like, we know ilm yaqeen that there will be Muslims who will go to Jahannam for a period of time. No Muslim will stay in Jahannam forever. I find it very strange that people find relief in that. Like, oh, it's okay because no Muslim will stay in Jahannam forever. You do one thing. Wallahi, if not the children, like in the adults, do one thing. if you have a candle in the house, see how long you can put your finger next to the flame. Just a candle. I'm not talking about your oven. I'm not talking about your gas cooker. Take a candle and see how long can you put your finger even a centimeter from the flame. Wallahi, maybe even a centimeter away and you're feeling pain from it. How long could you put your finger in the flame? That's your finger. And the fire of Jahannam is 70 times hotter than the fire of this world. And the fire of the candle is not hot compared to the fire that you light with the wood. And Wallahi, ajib, how people can say that it's okay because we won't be in the fire forever. That's how Muslims think, right? It's all right because it doesn't matter what I do, even if I'm doing major sins, alhamdulillah, I won't be in the fire forever. It's a very dangerous mindset. And it's the mindset of who? Who is it the mindset of? The Yahud. It's exactly what the Yahud say. وَقَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارِ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودًا. They said we're not going to be, doesn't matter because we're going to go to the fire. We know that we're doing evil and we are going to go to the fire, but we're only going to go to the fire for a few days. Like I said, how many times we talk about leaving the food and the products and the companies that support the Yahud. Like, and we don't leave their behavior, their personality, the sins that they do, we do the same. This is min babi awla, before you leave the companies and the food, you should leave their behavior. It's a very dangerous thing to think that you're only going to be in the fire for a short time.
وهم يصطرخون فيها ربنا أخرجنا نعمل صالحا غير الذي كنا نعمل أولم نعمركم ما يتذكر فيه من تذكر وجاءكم النذير فذوقوا فما للظالمين من نصير. And they'll cry out therein, our Lord, remove us. We will do righteousness. Other than that, we are doing. But did we not grant you life enough for whoever would remember therein to remember? And the warner had come to you. So taste the punishment, for there is not for the wrongdoers any helper.
And we said that it's not sincere from them. What we mean it's not sincere is it's not a genuine regret that what they did was wrong. What it is a desire not to be punished. That's it. We said Allah does not accept that tawbah from a person. In terms of after they die. As for this interesting mas'ala, does Allah accept it from someone in their life? Some of the ulama mentioned it. Yes, they said with istighfar, can a person make istighfar just because they don't want to be punished, but they don't truly regret what they did? There's some indication that could be the case. A person could ask Allah, oh Allah, forgive me, even though they don't truly have regret for what they've done. And that is in this life. As for Yawm al-Qiyamah, this person, it's just, Allah does not accept for a person that they see the angels of punishment come in front of them or they see the fire. And then they say, oh our Lord, we wish we weren't here. But you never did you change when the warner came to you. Never did you make an effort.
إن الله عالم غيب السماوات والأرض إنه عليم بذات الصدور. Indeed, Allah is knower of the unseen aspects of the heavens and earth. Indeed, He is knowing of what within the breasts.
And as we said, this ayah, as we've heard similar ayat before, but the ayah is contextual to the context of what is being said.
هو الذي جعلكم خلائف في الأرض فمن كفر فعليه كفره ولا يزيد الكافرين كفرهم عند ربهم إلا مقتا ولا يزيد الكافرين كفرهم إلا خسارا. It is He who has made you successors upon the earth. And whoever disbelieves upon him will be the consequence of his disbelief, and the disbelief of the disbelievers does not increase them in the sight of their Lord except in hatred, and the disbelief of the disbelievers does not increase them except in loss. قل أرأيتم شركاؤكم الذين تدعون من دون الله أروني ماذا خلقوا من الأرض أم لهم شرك في السماوات أم آتيناهم كتابا فهم على بينة من بل إن يعد الظالمون بعضهم بعضا إلا غرورا. Say, have you considered your partners whom you invoke besides Allah? Show me what they have created from the earth. Or have they partnership with Him in the heavens? Or have we given them a book so they are standing on evidence therefrom? No, rather, the wrongdoers do not promise each other except delusion.
Now, I think it's very important, these ayat that are comprehensive in responding to shirk in one ayah, it's very important to look at how the ayah is presented. Very important. Because really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cuts off their arguments in one ayah. It's more than once, it comes many times, maybe we've covered 10 so far or more, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cuts off everything they could argue in one ayah. Say, did they create something on the earth? Hatta even ask the Christian, show me one single thing on this earth that Isa ibn Maryam created. They will say, no, Isa did not create. The Son did not create. That's what they will say. Or do they have a share in the heavens? Or do they have a scripture which they bring evidence from? For hatta the idol worshippers, there's no scripture, there's nothing, there's no prophethood, there's no basis at all. So neither do they have creation, nor do they have command, nor do they have a share, nor do they have scripture, nor do they have prophethood. For on what basis are those things worshipped? So these are, if you look at them in detail, there's more benefits you can take from it, not just limited. I'm just making a small commentary, but you could actually go through and really see how is this argument put forward.
إن الله يمسك السماوات والأرض أن تزولا ولئن زالتا إن أمسكهما من أحد من بعده إنه كان حليما غفورا. Indeed, Allah holds the heavens and the earth, lest they cease. And if they should cease, no one could hold them in place after Him. Indeed, He is forbearing and forgiving.
And no one can sustain the heavens and the earth except Allah. And that is part of His name, Al-Qayyum. He's the one who sustains the heaven and the earth. And if they were to fall apart, I think fall apart might be better than the word cease. Fall apart is probably the best word here. If they were to fall apart, no one but Allah could hold them up. And Allah Azza wa Jal is Halim. From the name of Allah Azza wa Jal is Al-Halim, is the one who is not quick to take retribution. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people disobey Him and He lets them, gives them time to correct themselves. People are far from the truth, He gives them a chance. And from that is the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, Al-Halim.
وأقسموا بالله جهد أيمانهم لئن جاءهم نذير ليكونن أهدى من إحدى الأمم فلما جاءهم نذير ما زادهم إلا نفورا. And they swore by Allah their strongest oaths that if a warner came to them, they would be more guided than any one of the previous nations. But that when a warning came to them, it did not increase them except in aversion.
Because they didn't have a prophet at that time any before. So they used to swear their oaths that if we get a prophet, we will be better than the Jews and the Christians. We won't make their mistakes. And when a prophet came to them, they turned away.
استكبارا في الأرض ومكر السيء ولا يحيق المكر السيء إلا بأهله فهل ينظرون إلا سنة الأولين فلن تجد لسنة الله تبديلا ولن تجد لسنة الله تحويلا. Due to arrogance in the land and plotting of evil, but the evil plots does not encompass except its own people. Then do they await except the way of the former peoples? But you will never find in the way of Allah any change, and you will never find in the way of Allah any alteration.
The sunnatullah are the things that Allah Azza wa Jal does consistently for all of His creation. It's called sunnatullah. And if, for example, the fact that Allah sends a warner, the fact that if the people deny, Allah gives them hardship, the fact that after the hardship, Allah gives them ease, and then Allah Azza wa Jal sends upon them punishment. These consistent things that Allah decrees again and again and again in a consistent fashion. They don't differ from people to people or nation to nation. This is called sunnatullah. And in reality, evil plotting only harms the people who do it, because it doesn't harm Allah anything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plots a plot against them that overcomes their plot. إِنَّهُمْ يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. So Allah plots a plan against them that is stronger than the plan that they plot. So it doesn't harm, but what it does is it harms the people who do it. Al-makru sayyi, evil plotting comes back on the people who do it. And what are they waiting for except what happened to the same people before them, Ad and Thamud, Ashabu Madian, the people of Fir'aun? Are they waiting for anything other than for the same thing to happen to them?
أولم يسيروا في الأرض فينظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم وكانوا أشد منهم قوة وما كان الله ليعجزه من شيء في السماوات ولا في الأرض إنه كان عليما قديرا. Have they not traveled through the land and observed how was the end of those before them? And they were greater than them in power. But Allah is not to be caused failure by anything in the heavens or on the earth. Indeed, He is ever knowing and competent.
I don't particularly. Alhamdulillah. I don't particularly like the word competent. I don't know. It's just my. I prefer the word capable. I don't. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my personal. I don't like that word. في حق الله سبحانه وتعالى. جزاك الله خير. تفضل يا
ولو يؤاخذ الله الناس بما كسبوا ما ترك على ظهرها من دابة ولكن يؤخرهم إلى أجل مسمى فإذا جاء أجلهم فإن الله كان بعباده بصيرا. And if Allah were to impose blame on the people for what they have earned, He would not leave it upon any creature, but He defers them for a specified term. And when their time comes, then indeed Allah has ever been of His servants seen.
So Allah Azza wa Jal knows exactly what to give them. The basir on here, and subhanAllah, we've not really had time, and I wish, wallahi, we had more time to go into the names and attributes of Allah at the end of each ayah, because we really haven't had a lot of time at all. And I think that's really been a real flaw of the tafsir, that we haven't been able to go into the names and attributes of Allah. As-Sa'di does a fantastic job, to be honest. In fact, I would say it is one of the best books of tafsir for this, for the names, like to go into the names and attributes of Allah at the end of each ayah. Like, and why is the word basir mentioned here? When their time comes, Allah has seen all of their deeds. What was good, what was bad, what was hidden, what was done secretly, what was done openly. And so Allah will give them the reward that is totally befitting to what it is that they did. Now, so we're going to start Surah Yasin, inshaAllah ta'ala. Now, before we start Surah Yasin it has a unique kind of position in the hearts of many Muslims. And what is interesting is that Surah Yasin, which is Surah Makkiyah, the surah itself, a lot of what is narrated about it is not authentic. In fact, some of them said there is nothing authentically reported in the virtues of Surah Yasin except the strongest of what is reported is the hadith لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ, that read Surah Yasin over the dying person. However, generally speaking, all of the things you hear narrated about Surah Yasin, Yasin is the heart of the Qur'an, not one thing from them is authentic. And this is really common, that the mawdu'at, one of the biggest areas of fabricated hadith, are hadith that are fabricated and are weak in regards to fada'il as-surah, the virtues of the surahs of the Qur'an. For we don't know, some of the ulama mentioned it in the topic of ما لا يصح فيه شيء, what there is nothing authentically reported on. It's an interesting topic in hadith, so worthwhile, wallahi, if you're studying hadith, it's really worthwhile to read the topics where there is no authentic hadith at all. What's the benefit of it, do you think? To know the topic where there is no authentic hadith. Yeah, you don't need to even research, and you automatically, for example, there is no authentic hadith about the timing of the Day of Judgment, except the hadith regarding it coming on a Friday, on Jumu'ah. There is no authentic hadith about it happening after so many years, after 5,000, after 2,000, after 1,000, after 500, there's nothing reported about it at all. So anything you see which says that the Day of Judgment will take place 2,000 years from this moment, or لا يصح منه شيء. And likewise, Fada'il Surah Yasin, they say about the same thing. لا يصح منها شيء. Nothing from it is authentic. Allahumma, there's one or two that are more strengthened than others. لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ is one of them. That's read Surah Yasin over the dying person. That has something in it. But this whole thing of Yasin is the heart of the Qur'an. And لا يثبت.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين ياسين والقرآن الحكيم, by the wise Qur'an. إنك لمن المرسلين, indeed you, O Muhammad, are from among the messengers. على صراط مستقيم, on a straight path. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم, this is a revelation of the exalted in might, the merciful. لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون, that you may warn a people whose forefathers were not warned, so they are unaware.
Now, it's also worth knowing, by the way, the hadith لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ, Surah Yasin, is also hadith da'if, by the way. Hadith لا يصح الحديث. It's not authentic. The hadith لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ Surah Yasin. لكن أخذ به الجمهور, the majority of the scholars took it and he said about reading on the person who is dying. And many scholars took the view, like in the hadith in itself is hadith ضعيف ضعفه النووي وغيره. It brings back to the principle لا يصح في فضائل هذه السورة شيء والله أعلم.
لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. Already the word has come into effect upon most of them, so they do not believe.
And this is the decree of Allah. The word here is the decree of Allah Azza wa Jal upon them. And the decree of Allah is always just, subhanahu wa ta'ala.
إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. Indeed, we have put shackles on their necks and they are to their chins, so they are with heads kept aloft.
Just a moment. As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala doesn't mention where these aghlal, and he mentions the severity of them. The shackles on their necks up to their chin, so their heads are forced to be raised. And As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala doesn't mention where this, how this takes place or where this takes place. He mentions, he said, إِنَّمَا حَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلِ بَعْدَ أَنْ عُرِضَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْحَقِّ فَرَفَضُوهُ. The reason that Allah's decree is established upon them is the truth was presented to them and they refused it. And he mentions the severity of the chains that are upon their necks. Like the only thing we have here is, and I'll bring you some more information about it, is we only have in the clear Qur'an, it is as if we have put shackles around their necks. لكن هذا يحتاج إلى يعني as if here, that requires checking in the books of Tafseer. Because here, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا, we have certainly placed around their neck shackles. For that's an area I think we need to go back to the larger books of Tafseer for it. We need to go back to Tafseer al-Tabari to go, because this Sa'di doesn't mention here specifically more details on it. He mentions the severity of it, but he doesn't mention more details. And because the Zahir is speaking about them now, right? It's not speaking about them Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's not speaking about them in their graves. And it's speaking about them now. And I'm disinclined to this word as if. Because this is a very, you must be very careful with this word, using this word in translation as if. You have to check it, make sure that definitely that's what's intended by it.
وَجَعَلْنَا مِن بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. And we have put before them a barrier and behind them a barrier and covered them so they do not see.
Now, this barrier, it stops them from Iman. And what has covered them is ignorance and wretchedness in every way. Also here, it's worth mentioning, this is the ayah it's mentioned with regard to the seerah. And is it authentic that the Prophet ﷺ read this ayah when he left Mecca, when he escaped from Mecca? That also needs research. I don't recall. I recall it being mentioned, people mention it. Also it needs research. We'll mark it down as the things that we need to look at, inshallah ta'ala. The meaning of the ayah in itself, the ayah came down with the barrier which stops them from Iman and makes them wretched from every single angle. Nothing can reach them from Iman because of their own actions and choices.
وَسَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. And it is all the same for them whether you warn them or do not warn them, they will not believe.
That's because guidance and misguidance are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. You can only warn one who follows the message and fears the most merciful unseen. So give him good tidings of forgiveness and noble reward.
Now, I like the way they translate the unseen, because it has to leave both types. Allah is unseen, and also you fear Allah when you're not seen by the people. And this is the second group of people, the people who benefit from the Qur'an.
إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. Indeed, it is we who bring the dead to life and record what they have put forth and what they have left behind, and all things we have enumerated in a clear register.
And here, I want you to notice the use of the word imam for the Lawh al-Mahfuz. It's very important. And you need it later if you want to talk about the word imam in the Qur'an. Because we said, there are shubuhat, especially the Rafidah, have a lot of confusion around imama and so on. For this ayah shows a possibility of the previous ayah. Now, where was the other ayah? Even I will lie. I would ask you, but I'm not going to ask you something I can't remember myself. I'm going to look at it. The ayah, Surah Al-Isra. Surah Al-Isra, subhanAllah. يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. We said this ayah, the Rafidah use it as a evidence for imamah, that there are divinely appointed imams. In every time there is not a prophet, there is a divinely appointed imam, and if you don't follow him, you're a disbeliever. They use the ayah in Surah Al-Isra, ayah number 71. This ayah shows the tafsir of Ahl Sunnah for the word imam in the ayah in Surah Al-Isra. It's not the only tafsir. We said Ahl Sunnah have many views. They have views that يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. On the day we'll call everyone by their imam. Some of them said the prophet, some of them said by the one that they followed. But here is a proof of the use of the word imam, the use of the word imam to mean a book. نعم. وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. In a clear book. For the word imam, it also means a book. And we said the best way to respond to the Rafidah regarding the ayah in Surah Al-Isra is with two ways. First of all, to say to them, is that all you have? Something which you said is as important as the 5 daily prayers. Rather, you said it's more important than the 5 daily prayers. You said it's as important as believing in the angels and believing in the last day. Rather, you said it's more important in some situations than that. And you made it like believing in Allah and like believing in the Prophet ﷺ. For how can it only be mentioned in one ayah in the whole of the Qur'an? And then the second thing is, there's no instruction in the ayah in Surah Al-Isra. It's simply khabar. There is no amr in it. So that's the second response. The ayah in Surah Al-Isra is a khabar. It tells you what will happen Yawm al-Qiyamah. Everyone will be called by their imam. And it doesn't tell you to follow an imam, not to follow an imam, which imam to follow, that Ali ibn Abi Talib is the true imam, that after him Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. It doesn't tell you anything about anyone. It just tells you what will happen Yawm al-Qiyamah, that everyone will be called by their imam. So this is also the second argument, that you're basing your entire religion on an ayah which doesn't itself tell you to do anything. It doesn't say to وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ, perform the ruku'. It doesn't tell you فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرُسُلِهِ, believe in Allah and His messengers. It just tells you on the day of judgment, people will be called by their imam. It doesn't tell you who imam is correct, which imam to follow. But the third argument is very strong. And the argument says, إِذَا ظَهَرَ الْإِحْتِمَالِ بَطَلَ الْإِسْتِدْلَالِ. This is a very important principle. And I want you to, if you make a note of it, wallahi, tastafid minha, inshallah ta'ala. And tastafid minha, inshallah ta'ala. إِذَا ظَهَرَ الْإِحْتِمَالِ بَطَلَ الْإِسْتِدْلَالِ. If you have an ayah that has more than one possible meaning, you cannot use that as a dalil for one meaning specifically unless you prove that elsewhere that is the intended meaning. So if we have an ayah, imam, we all agree. Imam can be a path. In which ayah is the word imam used as a path? It comes in, even I'm not doing that well today with my ayat. It comes in Surah Al-Hijr. فانتقمنا منهم وإنهما لبإمام مبين. Surah Al-Hijr, ayah number 79. زين. Surah Al-Hijr, ayah number 79 uses the word imam as a road. They are on a clear imam, a clear road, like the road. And by the way, that tafsir is accepted in the books of the Shia, in their tafsir. Also, they say the word imam here means a road. And in Surah Yasin, they say the word imam means a book. For all of us agree, the word imam can mean a road, it can mean a book, it can mean a leader, it can mean a prophet, it can mean an example. Otherwise, we say to them, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا. Or even more than that, there's an ayah that what do you say about the ayah? رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Make us an imam. If imams are divinely appointed by Allah, how can you ask Allah to make you an imam? Can you ask Allah to make you a prophet? You can't, right? This is extreme transgression in dua. So how can you ask Allah to make you an imam? How can we have a dua that people are told to say from the Qur'an, make me an imam? So now if we take all of these points together, we have what about the ayah in Surah Al-Isra? What do we have? We have ihtimalat, possibilities. Does the word imam mean a prophet? Does the word imam mean a leader? Does the word imam mean an imam? Does the word imam mean a book? And all of them are reported in the books of tafsir. Hatta the tafsir of the Shia, even. Like there are reports of different options here. For now we say إذا ظهر الاحتمال بطل الاستدلال. You can't use it as a dalil for something which can mean more than one thing, and then just because you personally want it to mean a personal meaning, you can't make it mean that meaning. You have to bring another dalil to say which one it is. That's why all the people who took a view from Ahl Sunnah, they brought a dalil for it. And this is the dalil from Surah Yasin. This is the dalil of the people who said that the imam means a book. Yani everyone will be called by their book. Then they differed about which book it is in Surah Al-Isra. Some of them said they will be called by their book of deeds. In Surah Al-Isra, they said they'll be called by their book of deeds. And others said they will be called by the book of religion that they followed, the scripture they followed. So the people of the Torah will be called by the Torah, and the people of the Injil will be called by the Injil, and the people of the Qur'an will be called by the Qur'an. وهكذا.
واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون. And present to them an example, the people of the city when the messengers came to it.
It says in the Muhsin Khan translation, I have to be honest and say I would be interested to find out whether the Muhsin Khan translation here has been amended after them. Because it seems like there's points in there that never used to be in there before. Allahu alam. I wonder whether that it's been amended after that. Someone is responsible to add. Anyways, ala kulli hal, they mentioned that the town was Anitok in southern Turkey. And that's what they mention about it. It's not mentioned in the ayah. In southern Turkey, near the Syrian border, that's what they say. That's where they say this town is. Wallahu alam. We don't have a clear evidence for it. It's not mentioned in the ayah, like, and that's what they wrote in their footnotes, that it said that the town is Anitok, which is in southern Turkey.
إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. When we sent to them two, but they denied them, so we strengthened them with a third, and they said, indeed, we are messengers to you.
Naam. So they were 3 messengers that came to that town.
قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. They said, you are not but human beings like us, and the Most Merciful has not revealed a thing. You are only telling lies.
So there's 3 things here. First of all, I want you to pay attention to the fact that they have no problem with Allah and Allah's existence, because they say Ar-Rahman has not sent down anything. The second thing is they deny 2 things. What are the 2 things they deny in the ayah? So they deny revelation in prophethood in general. That's the first thing. Allah has not sent anything down. And this, the zahir of the ayah is that they deny revelation. And we don't believe that there is such a thing as prophethood. And they specifically deny those 3 messengers. And we don't believe you, and we don't believe in that Allah has sent down prophethood through men.
قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون. They said, our Lord knows that we are messengers to you. وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. And we are not responsible except for clear notification.
I also want you to think about at the beginning of the story of the town, Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا. وَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ, and He give to Quraysh this example. So bear in mind here when you're listening to the story, this story is deliberately chosen, and it's of course completely true and authentic, because Allah is telling us, وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا. No one is more truthful than Allah in speech. But why is it being given as an example to Quraysh? This is very important, that these things, the Prophet ﷺ is being told, and the people of Quraysh are being told about what happened to these people. And our Lord knows we are messengers to you, just like we know that Muhammad ﷺ is the messenger to these people. And the duty is to deliver the message. Your duty also, O Muhammad ﷺ, is to give the message. It's not your duty to guide people. Your duty is, Allah knows you are His messenger, just give the message clearly. That's it.
قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. They said, indeed, we consider you a bad omen. If you do not desist, we will surely stone you, and they will surely touch you. From us, a painful punishment.
Now, this belief in bad omens, and is addressed in the next ayah.
قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. They said, your omen is with yourselves. Is it because you are reminded that rather you are transgressing people?
Just a moment. Naam. In other words, the evil and the shirk that you do is going to come back against you. And that's what the meaning is of طائركم معكم. Yani, this evil that you believe, it's actually yourselves. Yani, the bad omen is actually the actions that you are doing, the evil that's going to come against you. Yani, bad omen, what does it really mean? And if we just look it up in the dictionary, Yani something that is believed to foretell the future. Yani something bad in the future is going to come about because of you. Rather, they are told, طَائِرُكُمْ مَعَكُمْ. The evil that you are foreseeing in the future is because of your actions, it's because of your shirk that evil is going to come about. And bad belief in omens is something which goes against the concept of Tawheed, right? And Quraysh had it. Quraysh had belief in all these different omens. They had all the belief if this tatayyur, which originally tatayyur was the belief regarding the birds. If the birds fly from east to west, it means something. And if the birds fly from west to east, it means something. And if the birds fly over your head, it means something. And if an owl lands on your house, it means someone's going to die. And, you know, all of this stuff, the Friday the 13th, and that's from our culture, and walking under a ladder and believing that, you know, if the mirror is cracked, it's going to, all of this is mimma yunafi tawheed. That goes against the concept of tawheed and the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal alone. Either it reduces it or either it removes it completely, according to the level of severity of belief in the omen. And if a person believes that the omen is from Allah, Allah sent that omen, then this is like a bid'ah. And it doesn't take the person out of Islam, but it reduces there. It becomes min ash-shirk al-asghar, lesser shirk. Because the person says, I believe that it's Allah that will cause me. Allah will cause something bad to happen to me. Because shirk asghar, one of the causes of it is التعلق بالأسباب ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. Attaching your heart to things that Allah did not give you authority to attach your heart to. Like if someone believes that omen in itself, that could take a person outside of the religion of Islam. For this idea of omens and superstition is something Islam has nothing to do with. But what they are told is, if you really want to know why you've got a bad future, the bad future is because of you, because of the evil that you're doing. طَائِرُكُمْ مَعَكُمْ. Is it because you have been reminded? Is that why you threaten us to stone us? Because we reminded you? Rather, you're a people who have transgressed.
وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين. And there came from the furthest end of the city a man running. He said, "O my people, follow the messengers."
In his Sa'd, he says, حرصا على نصح قومه. He was really keen to benefit his people. He wanted people to. So he came not from the three messengers. And he told his people that, "O my people, follow the messengers." He gave them advice now.
اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. Follow those who do not ask of you any payment and they are rightly guided. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. And why should I not worship he who created me and to whom you will be returned?
Worship the one who created you. That's again the connection between rububiyyah and uluhiyyah.
أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. Should I take other than him false deities while, if the most merciful intends for me some adversity, their intercession will not avail me at all, nor can they save me.
This also shows that the shirk of the people was that of any intercession, right? And it's clear that the shirk here is that they are looking for intercessors. They don't believe in other creators. How can I take besides him other gods whose intercession will not benefit me with Ar-Rahman?
إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. Indeed, I would then be in manifest error. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. Indeed, I have believed in your Lord, so listen to me. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون. It was said, enter paradise. He said, I wish my people could know.
His people killed him. When they heard what he said, his people murdered him. So it was said to him after he was killed, "Udkhul al-Jannah." Udkhul al-Jannah. And he met a violent death. And it was said to him, enter Jannah. He said, how I wish my people knew.
بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. Of how my Lord has forgiven me and placed me among the honored. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. And we did not send down upon his people after him any soldiers from the heaven, nor would he have done so.
Nor would we have done so. And we didn't need to do it. That's the meaning of it. We didn't send down soldiers upon his people from the heavens. And we didn't have any need to do it.
إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. It was not but one shout and immediately they were extinguished. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. How regretful for the servants. There did not come to them any messenger except that they used to ridicule him.
How regretful for the servants, or in the clear Qur'an, or pity such beings. Like that. Those are, and it's an expression of pity, an expression of regret, and how much they regret. Ya hasratan ala al-ibad. No messenger came to them except that they used to ridicule him.
ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. Have they not considered how many generations we destroyed before them, that they to them will not return? وإن كلا لما جميع لدينا محضرون. And indeed all of them will yet be brought present before us. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض.
That's the end of the ayah. وإن كل لما.
No, I realized when I was reading it, I would have read it, sir.
Okay.
And the of them will be yet present before us. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. And a sign for them is the dead earth. We have brought it to life and brought forth from it grain, and from it they eat.
The dead earth that is brought to life is a sign of the resurrection.
وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون. And we placed therein gardens of palm trees and grapevines and caused to burst forth therefrom some springs. ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. That they may eat of his fruit and their hands have not produced it, so they will not be grateful.
To eat from their fruit, and their hands had no any role in it. Their hands did not produce it. They had no role in it. But there's another view of the tafsir. So there's two views here. One view is that here, وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ, that the ma here is nafiya. The ma here, the word ma means they have not. They have not had any hands in it. They've not had any hand in it, no role in it, in growing the fruits. And likewise, the word ma here, it can be also mawsula, meaning alladhi. let them eat from the fruits, and let them also eat from what their hands have harvested. And let them eat from the fruits, and let them eat from what their hands have produced. And both of them are from the blessings of Allah. And the fruits that grow without human intervention, and the fruits which are, the crops which are planted, the people plow the earth and they plant the seed and the crops grow.
سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. Exalted is He who created all pairs from what the earth grows and from themselves and from that which they do not know.
Now, the pairs here of everything, of the plants, of the animals, of the species, the pairs.
وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. And a sign for them is the night. We remove from it the light of day, so they are left in darkness. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. And the sun runs on course toward its stopping point. That is the determination of the exalted in might, the knowing.
Here, the word we remove from it the light of day, we strip from it daylight is better, because actually that's the word used. نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّهَارِ. We strip the daylight from it. That's a better translation. And the sun runs on its course towards a stopping point, and towards the point where it will stop. إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ. When the sun will be wound up. وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ. And when the stars will fall down from the sky. The sun runs on a course, a fixed course. The course that Allah Azza wa Jal decrees for it. Where it rises and sets.
والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. And the moon we have determined for it phases until it returns appearing like the old date stalk.
When it returns again, when it comes out again.
لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. It is not allowable for the sun to reach the moon, nor does the night overtake the day, but each in an orbit is swimming.
Each one of them runs on a course and an orbit that Allah has decreed for it.
وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون. And a sign for them is that we carried their forefathers in a laden ship.
Now, the people of Nuh. Dhurriya is interesting here. The use of the word is unique here, because dhurriya normally means your children. But here it's used to mean their forefathers. That's what it says in the translation. Let me just bring it from As-Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala. He said, قال كثير من المفسرين المراد بذلك آباؤهم. He said many of the scholars of Tafseer, they said the meaning of it is their fathers. Dhurriya here is used to mean their fathers, but it's not the only view in the tafsir. That's why here Muhsin Khan says we carried their offspring in the ship, but still he says the ship of Nuh. فعلى كل حال here the word offspring, the most apparent is that it means their fathers. We carried their fathers in the ship of Nuh. From the dhurriya of Adam, min dhurriyati Adam, the offspring of Adam.
وَخَلَقْنَا لَهُم مِّن مِّثْلِهِ مَا يَرْكَبُونَ. And we created for them from the likes of it that which they ride.
So As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala here, and he says, and we created for them similar things to ride in, that he argues very strongly here that the dhamir here goes back to the dhurriyyah. And that we made for the dhurriyyah, and the offspring of Adam, similar things which they ride upon. Here refers to the camels. The camels which are they call them the ships of the land. They call the camels the ships of the land now.
وَإِن نَشَأْ نُغْرِقُهُمْ فَلَا صَرِيخَ لَهُمْ.
Just انتبه the qalqala here.
وَإِن نَشَأْ نُغْرِقُهُمْ فَلَا.
I'm hearing a dhamma, it's not a dhamma.
وَإِن نَشَأْ نُغْرِقُهُمْ فَلَا.
I'm still hearing you read نُغْرِقُهُمْ. نُغْرِقُهُمْ.
وَإِن نَشَأْ نُغْرِقَهُمْ فَلَا صَرِيخَ لَهُمْ وَلَا هُمْ يُنقَذُونَ. And if we should will, we could drown them. Then no one responding to a cry would there be for them, nor would they be saved. إِلَّا رَحْمَةً مِنَّا وَمَتَاعًا إِلَى حِينٍ. Except as a mercy from us and provision for a time.
And however, instead of drowning them, Allah Azza wa Jal allows them as a mercy to be given a time on this earth.
وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّقُوا مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَمَا خَلْفَكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. But when it is said to them, beware of what is before you and what is behind you, perhaps you will receive mercy.
Yani here, ittaqu, yani protect yourself from the terrors of the grave and the terrors of the qiyamah, and protect yourselves of from the punishments in this world. That seems to be the meaning of ma bayna aydikum wa ma khalfakum. Yani the life of this world, and that which is before you and that which is behind you. And the hereafter, and that which is behind you, some of them said the destroyed nations. Yani have taqwa, protect yourself from what is in front of you. What is in front of you is either the punishments of this world or the punishments of the hereafter or the grave. And what is behind you, some of them said, what is behind you here refers to the punishments that happened to the previous nations. Like, there's other views about it. Some of them took the other way around. And what is behind you is the punishments of the hereafter, and it's yet to come, and what is before you are the punishments of this world. For all of them, the two views, the end result is the same. The end result is the same, but the difference is which one means which. And I think that what is ahead of you of the punishments in the barzakh and the qiyamah, and what is behind you in terms of the punishments that happened to the previous nations that can happen to you, for that seems to be more consistent with the language.
وَمَا تَأْتِيهِم مِّنْ آيَةٍ مِّنْ آيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ إِلَّا كَانُوا عَنْهَا مُعْرِضِينَ. And no sign comes to them from the signs of their Lord except that they are from it turning away. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أَنفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ قَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنُطْعِمُ مَنْ لَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ أَطْعَمَهُ إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. And when it said to them, spend from that which Allah has provided for you, those who disbelieve say to those who believe, should we feed one whom, if Allah had willed, He would have fed? You are not, but in a clear error.
Now, so they use the same, a very similar argument, not quite the same, but very similar to the argument that the Yahud brought when they said, "Inna Allah faqirun wa nahnu aghniya." Allah is poor and we are rich. In other words, they argue here that if Allah Azza wa Jal willed, Allah will feed them. Why should we feed them? Like, what is required from you here is fi'lul asbab. to do the causes which Allah Azza wa Jal has decreed, and for you to be rewarded. No doubt if Allah wills to feed them, He can feed them. But the sunnah of Allah is to give the test to you, and for you to be rewarded or punished based on what you do.
ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين. And they say, when is this promise if you should be truthful?
And when will be the punishment, or when will be the qiyamah that you promise us now?
ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون. They do not await except one blast which will seize them while they are disputing.
And the blowing of the horn. This here is the blowing of the وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ. It's the blowing of the horn. And they only wait for a single cry that will take them while they are disputing. And while they're involved in worldly disputes, disputing about matters of the world, discussing with each other, arguing in the marketplace, and the cry of the horn will seize them all.
فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. And they will not be able to give any instruction, nor to their people can they return.
And they will not be able to give any wasiyah, any instruction to their heirs about what to do when I die, nor will they return to their families now.
ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون. And the horn will be blown, and at once from the graves to their Lord they will hasten.
Now, the second time, ونفخ في الصور فصعق من في السماوات ومن في الأرض إلا من شاء الله ثم نفخ فيه أخرى فإذا هم قيام ينظرون. The second time the horn will be blown, and they will hasten out from their graves now.
قالوا يا ويلنا ما بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون. They will say, "Oh, woe to us who has raised us up from our sleeping place." The reply will be, "This is what the most merciful had promised, and the messengers told the truth."
Now, when they wake up, they will say from the grave, they will say, "Woe to us, who took us out from this sleeping place?" The reality is, this is what Ar-Rahman promised you. This is what the messengers told you would happen.
إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. It will not be but one blast, and at once they are all brought present before us.
Now, here is where some of the ulama took the view of the third blowing, blowing of the horn. There's a khilaf in it. Like, and it seems here that it's not a third blowing of the horn. Wallahu alam. This refers to the same blowing of the horn. That it will only be a single blast, and then all of them will be before us. Like, and some of them took the view of a third blowing of the horn here.
فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون. So today, no soul will be wronged at all, and you will not be recompensed except for what you used to do.
We'll stop there, inshallah, for Salat al-Asr. I just wanted to see what the Sa'di said about the Sayha here. نعم. إن كانت البعث من القبور. Sa'di brings it back to the same one, that the second Sayha, the third time the Sayha is mentioned, because the Sayha is mentioned 3 times in the surah, right? Are we not? Is that not the case? In the first, in ayah number 51, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ لا, before that, in ayah number 49, مَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً تَأْخُذُهُمْ وَهُمْ يَخِصِّمُونَ. There's no issue. This is the Sayha, the ending of the dunya. The world ends. نعم. Then وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ. This is the second blowing of the horn. نعم. إِن كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً. This here is the third mention, but it's referring to the second one. In the Sayha is only mentioned twice. The cry is only mentioned twice. Like a person could understand from it 3 times. Like in the Jumhur upon what is mentioned in the ayah in Surah Al-Zumar. ونفخ في الصور فصعق من في السماوات ومن في الأرض إلا من شاء الله ثم نفخ فيه أخرى فإذا هم قيام ينظرون. And it happens twice. Once to end the dunya and once to resurrect the people from the graves. How long is between the two? Between the two is 40. They said to the narrator, is it 40 days or 40 months or 40 years? He didn't answer. And as though he said, I heard the Prophet say 40, but I didn't hear him say, is it 40 days or 40 months or 40 years? Between the blowing of the two horns, the one that ends the world and the one that begins the resurrection. We have 2 pages of Surah Yasin left, inshallah ta'ala. So we're going to take a break for Asr now, because as the masjid starts getting busy, so it's difficult for the class.
إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون. Indeed, the companions of paradise that day will be amused in joyful occupation.
And they will be busy enjoying themselves in paradise.
هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون. They and their spouses in shade, reclining on adorned couches. لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون. For them therein is fruit, and for them is whatever they request or wish. سلام قولا من رب رحيم. And salam, a word from a merciful Lord.
It will be said to them, salam. Yani you will have nothing negative will happen to you, nothing bad. There will be no more flaws, there will be no more bad feelings. And Allah will remove everything which is every aib and every naqs, every deficiency and every flaw from you.
وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون. Then he will say, but stand apart today, you criminals.
Imtazu here is a command to be different. In other words, stand out. Don't let yourselves be among the believers today. Don't let yourselves be mixed up among the believers today. Rather, on the day of judgment, the believers and the kuffar and the munafiqeen will be separated from one another.
ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. Did I not enjoin upon you, O children of Adam, that you not worship shaitan, for indeed he is to you a clear enemy?
What did we say is the most common worship of the shaitan? What is it? We mentioned it last time.
Common worship.
Worship of the shaitan. And how do people most commonly worship the shaitan? By obedience, yeah. It's ibadat ta'ah. Obedience to the shaitan in that which they know that Allah prohibited.
وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. And that you worship only me, this is a straight path.
And how can anyone after that ayah have a doubt about the reason for people being separated into believers and disbelievers Yawm al-Qiyamah? All of it is related to worship. Allah Azza wa Jal did not say, for example, that you believe in my existence. This is a straight path. وَأَنِ اعْبُدُونِي. That's the argumentation between the prophets and their people. The clash that happened between the prophets and their people was about ibadah. وَأَنِ اعْبُدُونِي. That's what makes people وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمِ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ. What made the mujrimun different from the believers is وَأَنِ اعْبُدُونِي, who worshipped Allah and who didn't.
وَلَقَدْ أَضَلَّ مِنْكُمْ جِبِلًّا كَثِيرًا أَفَلَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْقِلُونَ. And he had already led astray from among you much of creation. So did you not use reason?
And a great multitude, jibillan here, and he has a huge numbers of people before you.
هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون. This is the hellfire which you were promised. اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. Enter to burn therein today for what you used to deny. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. That day we will seal over their mouths, and their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify about what they used to earn.
Now, this is when they reject the witness of the angels. So when the people on the day of judgment, they say, my Lord, I will not accept anyone to be a witness over me. And I will not accept the angels. I will not allow myself to be convicted based on the testimony of anyone else. So from the complete justice of Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah Azza wa Jal accepts from them this request. Because Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will come and say, oh Allah, are you going to convict me because of the testimony? They know it's the angels don't lie. Again, am I going to be convicted because of the testimony of someone else? So Allah Azza wa Jal, from the completeness of His justice, will make their own hands and feet and skin speak about what they used to do. And we will speak more about that. It's going to come in some of the surahs which are yet to come.
ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. And if we willed, we could have obliterated their eyes, and they would race to find the path, and how could they see?
And we could have left them without guidance in this world, but out of our mercy we didn't.
ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. And if we willed, we could have deformed them, paralyzing them in their places, so they would not be able to proceed, nor could they return.
For example, to have turned them into another object, to have turned them into stone, to have paralyzed them, then they would not be able to do anything in this world. In other words, the two examples come together. The first example is leaving them without guidance, and the second is leaving them unable to follow it. And this is a theme which comes throughout the Qur'an and the Sunnah. That there are two things. There is knowing what is the truth and then having the ability to follow it. And here these two examples tell what would happen that Allah Azza wa Jal is able to have removed those two things. And in the first ayah, وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَطَمَسْنَا عَلَىٰ أَعْيُنِهِمْ, we could have left them without any guidance. وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَمَسَخْنَاهُمْ عَلَىٰ مَكَانَتِهِمْ, we could have left them with guidance but without the ability to actually, they can see the guidance but they can't actually do anything with it. Like from the rahmah of Allah is that Allah Azza wa Jal, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق. Allah sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of truth. And you had the guidance and you had the ability to do it. Guidance was there and you had the ability to take the choice and to actually do it. But you didn't choose either of them.
وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. And he to whom we grant long life, we reverse in creation. So will they not understand?
And we take a person as they get older, they become more like a child. نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ, and we send him back like a child. Which surah did it come in? Surah Al-Rum. No. In Surah, I'm talking about the ayah in Surah Al-Rum. That Allah Azza wa Jal created you from weakness. ثُمَّ جَعَلَ مِن بَعْدِ ضَعْفٍ قُوَّةٍ, and He made you strong after you were weak. جَعَلَ مِن بَعْدِ قُوَّةٍ ضَعْفًا وَشَيْبَةً. Then Allah Azza wa Jal, after you were strong, He turned you back to weakness and old age. So subhanAllah, there's an ayah min ayatillah, that a person as they get older, they become more and more like a child. Their mental capacity goes back to like that of a child. Their physical ability goes back to that of a child. Their ability to do things for themselves وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ.
وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين. And we did not give him knowledge of poetry, nor is it befitting for him. It is not but a message and a clear Qur'an.
And the Prophet ﷺ was not a poet, and he was not known for poetry among his people. We mentioned it in Surah Al-Shu'ara. He was not known for poetry. He doesn't have any. Some people from the Sahaba were known for poetry. Hatta even from the Quraysh, they were known for having qasaid and abiyat of poetry and collections of poetry. Hatta even if they were not shu'ara, they were known for having poetry. Like in the Prophet ﷺ was never known for having poetry. And that's part of the miracle, right? That the Qur'an came with this beautiful, eloquent language from someone who was never known to have had any attempt at poetry before. And can you imagine now someone who has never, ever, ever had any experience of poetry, and then suddenly the Qur'an is so many times longer than a poem. How long is a qasida? And how long is the Qur'an? A qasida might be a page. The Qur'an is 600 pages. And it's nothing like poetry. The Qur'an itself doesn't resemble poetry at all. Not in its rhythm, not in its style, not in any way. It doesn't resemble poetry. For subhanallah, this is an ayah min ayatillah that the Prophet ﷺ was not experienced in poetry, nor does the Qur'an resemble poetry, nor would it be befitting for him. Why would it not be befitting for him to be? First of all, because of the confusion in the message, but also because of what we were told about the shu'ara. يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. And the foolish people hang around them. They get involved in things that are not their concern. But it's not befitting for the Prophet ﷺ to be involved in poetry, nor is it befitting to compare this Qur'an to poetry. Rather, this Qur'an is a clear Qur'an. Qur'anun mubin.
لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. To warn whoever is alive and justify the word against the disbelievers.
And for the word to be justified. I would prefer it like that. Maybe that might be better. For the word to be justified. And for the decree to be justified against the disbelievers. For it to be justifiable. That the truth came to them and they rejected it. And hayyan here means the people who are alive with Islam. أو من كان ميتا فأحييناه.
أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون. Do they not see that we have created for them from what our hands have made, grazing livestock, and then they are their owners?
نعم. Again here, I'm going to go to the Tafseer for a moment, because there's also an issue here in the clear Qur'an. Now, As-Sa'di doesn't go into it. Like in both of them, both of the Sahih International and the Muslim Khan translation, they bring here the hand as a sifa lillahi azza wa jal. Yani they bring the hand as the sifa of Allah. Allah has two hands, there is no doubt about that. But the question is, in the ayah, is that what is intended? In the ayah, the sifa. That's what they do. Yet, however, the clear Qur'an goes away from that and says single-handedly. That to me is mushkil. It's got a problem with it, because مما عملت أيدينا, and you have to go back to the tafsir of Tabari and Tafsir al-Salaf. You have to see now, like, is that the view? Is that a view that people had before people's aqeedah was corrupted? Now, after people's aqeedah was corrupted, there is no la ibra bidalik. Yani people they believed all sorts of things. But before the people's aqeedah was corrupted, did anyone here take that the word aydina doesn't mean the sifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Otherwise, this is another example of ta'wil, them distorting the sifat. So you have to go back and check it. And we will do so, inshallah ta'ala. We'll go back and check here. Is there a mainstream view before the people's aqeedah was corrupted? And if you go to Tafseer al-Tabari, is there a mainstream view here that the word aydina here is not the sifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As-Sa'di doesn't go into it. Wallahu a'lam.
وَذَلَّلْنَاهَا لَهُمْ فَمِنْهَا رَكُوبُهُمْ وَمِنْهَا يَأْكُلُونَ. And we have tamed them for them, so some of them they ride and some of them they eat.
And these animals have been tamed, subdued, so that they may ride them and they may eat from them now.
وَاتَّخَذُوا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا مَنَافِعُ وَمَشَارِبُ أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. And for them therein are other benefits and drinks, so will they not be grateful?
And they have benefits from those animals, their skin, any other benefits that they take from the fur, the wool from the animals. And they have other benefits, as well as drinks. They drink from the milk of the animal. Will they not then be grateful to Allah?
وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ آلِهَةً لَعَلَّهُمْ يُنصَرُونَ. But they have taken besides Allah false deities that perhaps they would be helped. لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. They are not able to help them, and they themselves are for them soldiers in attendance. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم Stop there, sir. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. So let not their speech grieve you. Indeed, we know that they conceal and what they declare.
Why is there a stop there? How would the meaning change if you didn't stop?
So let not their speech grieve you.
If you don't stop, it's like putting a colon or putting the word that. Don't let their speech, when they said, we know what would they conceal. And you're making the latter part from their speech instead of from the speech of Allah. That's why you have to stop. Otherwise, qawluhum becomes qawluhum inna na'lamu ma yusirruna wa ma yu'linun. Yani it changes the meaning completely.
أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. Does man not consider that we created him from a mere sperm drop, then at once he is a clear adversary?
Adversary. And does he not see that he was created from something insignificant, something which is considered to be, and we don't want to say dirty because the origin of mankind is not dirty, but something which is not liked, it's not honored. And now when he reaches an age of maturity, he starts to argue about Allah and about revelation and about prophethood and disbelieves.
وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقَهُ قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ. And he presents for us an example and forgets his own creation. He says, who will give life to bones while they are disintegrated?
Now here, what was the example? What was it that they put forward? And how is it that وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا? What is it that they put forward? As an example here. And they forgot their original creation. It's what's explained in the ayah. قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ. In other words, they compared Allah Azza wa Jal to His creation. That's the apparent meaning. They thought of Allah in a way that's not divine. Allah can do anything. But instead they said, who? Tell me, who can bring the dead to life when they are bones, disintegrated? So you see what they did is they compared Allah Azza wa Jal to His creation. They thought of Allah in terms of ability and power in the way that they should have thought, the way that they would have thought about creation. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا. They described us with a description that is not befitting to us, saying, who can bring dead bones to life?
قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. Say, He will give them life who produced them the first time, and He is of all creation knowing.
So the example, what they did is, they were guilty of tamthil. They were guilty of comparing Allah to His creation here. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا. Here they're guilty of tamthil. And that's the Qur'anic terminology for it. The Qur'anic terminology is not tashbih. Even though tashbih, many of the ulama use it. But that's not the terminology used in the Qur'an. The Qur'an uses the terminology tamthil. Al-mathal. وَلَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. The meme and the tha and the lam. Meaning to compare Allah to His creation. So they said, just like human beings cannot raise the bones, so Allah cannot raise the bones. This is what it means. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا. The one who can raise them, did they forget how they were created the first time? Rather, the one who created them the first time, who knows everything about His creation, can bring them back to life. To bring them back to life, in reality, requires two things. To bring them back to life requires two things. Kamalul ilm and kamalul qudra. Perfect knowledge and perfect power. Yeah? Because perfect power on its own, they could say, okay, Allah has perfect power to resurrect us. But how? We are bones, we're dust. How will He know which one of us was this way and which one of us was that way, which one of us was tall, which one of us was short, which one of us was rich, which one of us was poor? And the one that has kamal al-ilm but not kamal al-qudra, and here again they say, look, He knows how we were, but how will He have the power to bring us back? So here Allah Azza wa Jal brings both of them. Kamal al-ilmi and kamal al-qudra. Perfect knowledge and perfect power. The one who created you the first time has perfect power. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. And every one of His creation, He knows everything about you. So He has perfect knowledge and perfect power.
الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. It is He who made for you from the green tree fire, and then from it you ignite.
It says in the clear Qur'an, there's a footnote. I don't know the validity of it, but it's just interesting. This verse refers to two types of Arabian trees which produce a fire when their green branches are rubbed together. I didn't know that, wallahi. Let me see if Sa'idi mentions it. Sa'idi didn't mention it. He just said that the fire comes from the dry tree, the dry tree that used to be green. And that's what Sa'idi, just generally, Sa'idi doesn't mention the two types of trees. Like he mentions in general, the tree is green, and then the tree becomes dry, and then you use it for firewood. For the two are. Like it's interesting. I don't this footnote. I don't know the validity of it, but it's just interesting. The two types of Arabian trees which produce a fire when their green branches are rubbed together. Allahu A'lam.
أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. Is not he who created the heavens and the earth able to create the likes of them? Yes, it is so, and he is the knowing creator.
Now, if you look at these examples, there's very, very powerful examples at the end of the surah about the proof of creation. So Allah Azza wa Jal says about, first of all, if you look at the beginning, Allah created you the first time. That's the first dalil. The second one, Allah knows everything about you. The third one, that Allah Azza wa Jal in front of your eyes gives you, and the one who gives you fire from the green tree. And Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who causes the plants to grow and die, and they come back to life again, and then the dried plant becomes fire, and then the tree becomes green. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you see this in front of your own eyes. And then Allah Azza wa Jal says, He's the one who created the heavens and the earth. And the heavens and the earth are greater than the creation of mankind. That's by the text of the Qur'an, there is a nas of the Qur'an in that. That the heavens and the earth are greater than the creation of mankind. So the one who did all of this is the one who can certainly resurrect you. And He is Al-Khallaq, the one who is the supreme creator, the one who is always creating, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Alim.
إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. His command is only when He intends a thing that He says to it, be, and it is. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. So exalted is He in whose hand is the realm of all things, and to Him you'll be returned.
The previous ayah, again, another evidence that Allah Azza wa Jal nothing is difficult for Him. He is the one who just says be, and it is. So there is nothing, you cannot compare Allah to His creation in the fact that they would find it difficult to even piece the bones together. And even a human being, they cannot even piece together, which bone belongs to which part of the body. And this is a big effort. Let alone to create something. Like in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He only says be, and it is. So subhana here means how perfect is Allah in opposition to what they said. And what they said is imperfect, but Allah is perfect. In His hands is the dominion of everything. And to Him you'll be returned. So we'll continue with Surah As-Saffat.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Was-Saffati Saffa. By those angels lined up in rows. فَالزَّاجِرَاتِ زَجْرًا. And those who drive the clouds. فَالتَّالِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. And those who recite the message. إِنَّ إِلَهَكُمْ لَوَاحِدٌ. Indeed, your God is one.
So Allah Azza wa Jal, the principle, this is I think the first time we've come across it properly, but we've come across it before, but here, the first time we're going to mention the principle. So Surah As-Saffat, by the way, is Makkiyah, but the principle here is very simple. The principle is that Allah swears by whatever He wills from creation. As for us, we are only allowed to swear by Allah. He say, Wallahi, uqsim billah. We're only allowed to swear by creation. But Allah swears by, we're only allowed to swear by Allah, but Allah swears by whatever He wants from His creation. But there's a principle here. لا يقسم إلا بمعظم. Allah only swears by something that is very, very significant. So anytime Allah swears by something, the evidence you take from it is the significance of what is mentioned, and the greatness of it, the greatness of the angels lined up in rows, the greatness of the angels who drive the clouds, and those who give the message. They bring the message of Allah to mankind. Allah swears by them that He is certainly one God worthy of worship alone.
رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما ورب المشارق. Lord of the heavens and the earth and that between them, and Lord of the sunrises.
The different places that the sun rises. Wallahu alam. Here, let me just read to you what As-Sa'di said about it. So he said here that there's different views with regard to the ayah. Some of them said the points of the sunrise, and some of them said the points of the stars, where the stars come out, the different positions of the stars in the sky. Like in the sun, it doesn't rise in the same place every time. There is like, I don't know what they call that, azimuth and all that. There is the variation in the places where the sun rises. That's possible that the ayah refers to it. And in the different place, all the different places where the sun rises in the sky, because it doesn't rise in the same place in the sky the whole year round, and it doesn't rise perfectly in the east. For Allah Azza wa Jal didn't say that it rises perfectly in the east. Al-Mashariq, all the different places in the east where it rises, the variations in the angle of the sun. But it's also said that the referral here is the stars. Al-Mashariq are all the places where the stars, the positions of the stars in the sky. But that's also a view that As-Sa'di mentions it. And he also says, why does Allah mention Al-Mashariq and not Al-Magharib? Why mention the east, where the sun rises and not where the sun sets? As-Sa'di says because it's included, right? When you mention that he's the Lord of the sun rises, then he's also the Lord of the places where the sun sets. And some of them mentioned because of the stars.
إنا زينا السماء الدنيا بزينة الكواكب. Indeed, we have adorned the nearest heaven with an adornment of stars.
Yeah. So the stars you see are part of As-Sama' ad-Dunya. And that is something profound, because when we look at the stars, it seems to us like, what we can see is that the stars are part of what we call the universe, right? The galaxy, the universe, all of that. It's full of stars. Like Allah mentions the stars only as the Sama' ad-Dunya, the lowest heaven. If what we see is true, then that would mean that all of what we see from the galaxy, all of it is As-Sama' ad-Dunya, the lowest heaven. That's something to think about. Like we don't make jazm, we don't make any like a guarantee of it, because the reality is we have a guarantee for what Allah said, but we don't have a guarantee for what we think exists in terms of the space and the galaxies and the universe. But from what we can see, it appears that everything we see from the galaxies and so on, all of it is from the Sama' ad-Dunya. Wallahu a'lam, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
وَحِفْظًا مِّن كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ مَارِدٍ, and as protection against every rebellious devil.
We've mentioned this already. That's the second purpose of the stars. So what's the first purpose of the stars? The first one mentioned here, decoration for the sky. And the second one is to strike the shayateen. And the third one is the one mentioned in Surah Al-An'am, وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ النُّجُومَ لِتَهْتَدُوا بِهَا فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. He is the one who made the stars for you to be guided by them while traveling on land and at sea.
لا يسمعون إلى الملأ الأعلى ويقذفون من كل جانب. So they may not listen to the exalted assembly of angels, and are pelted from every side.
So we'll hear more about it in Surah Al-Jinn, that this was a sign of the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, that they used to have freedom to ascend to the heavens, and they used to have an ability to listen to the gathering of the angels. However, this was severely restricted for them after the coming of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they were pelted by, some of them said, the stars themselves or the rays from the stars, from every angle, from every side.
دحورا ولهم عذاب واصب. Repelled, and for them is a constant punishment.
They are repelled back from listening to the angels. They snatch a word here and there, and they bring it to the fortune teller along with their lies, 100 lies now.
إلا من خطف الخطفة فأتبعه شهاب ثاقب. Except one who snatches some words by theft, but they are pursued by a burning flame piercing in brightness.
Piercing in brightness. Now, what happens is that they snatch. Yani, for example, the Prophet ﷺ told us the jinn, they climb on top of one another, the shayateen, until they reach that high place. And then they can no longer freely listen. Since the Prophet ﷺ came, they cannot freely listen to what the angels say. But what they do is try to hear something, just a word or two words, and then they pass it down quickly. They pass it down the chain, and the stars shoot against them. So sometimes the star kills them before they have a chance to pass it on to the next one. And sometimes the star, they pass the news on, and then the star hits them. First, that's how they pass their news to the fortune teller, and they mix with it 100 lies, and the fortune teller gets a mix-up of everything. But they snatch just khatfa. They just snatch a word or two words that they hear. إِلَّا مَنْ خَطِفَ الْخَطْفَ.
فاستفتهم أهم أشد خلقا أم من خلقنا إنا خلقناه من طين لازب.
إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُمْ. Alright, I just didn't.
فاستفتهم أهم أشد خلقا أم من خلقنا إنا خلقناهم من طين لازب. Then inquire of them, O Muhammad, are they a stronger or more difficult creation, or those others we have created? Indeed, we created them from sticky clay.
Like the universe, the galaxies, which is more difficult to create the galaxies? Nothing is difficult for Allah. Like in your eyes, which is the more complex creation? Is the more complex creation the galaxies and the universe and the stars, or is the more complex creation human beings? Allah says that what we have created, the stars, the galaxies, the arsh, the mountains, all of it is more complex than the creation of human beings. So how can you deny the resurrection?
بل عجبت ويسخرون. But you wonder while they mock. وإذا ذكروا لا يذكرون. And when they are reminded, they remember not.
And in some of the qira'at, بل عجبت. And I know Khalaf reads it like that. Yani, Hamza reads it like that. And others, بل عجبت. Yani Allah wonders at them. Yani Allah is not astonished. That's not astonished. Is that astonished is the wrong word, because astonished is that you what's the word for it? Let's just find it. What the word I'm looking for? Yani surprised. Allah is not surprised by it, but it shows the sifa for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بل عجبت ويسخرون. That's also a qira'ah.
وَإِذَا رَأَوْا آيَةً يَسْتَسْخِرُونَ. And when they see a sign, they ridicule. وَقَالُوا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا سِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. And say this is not but obvious magic. أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَبْعُوثُونَ. When we have died and become dust and bones, are we indeed to be resurrected? أَوَآبَاؤُنَا الْأَوَّلُونَ. And our forefathers as well. قُلْ نَعَمْ وَأَنْتُمْ دَاخِرُونَ. Say yes, and you'll be rendered contemptible.
Contemptible, I think it is. But I mean, humiliated is perhaps the best. In dakhirun, you'll be humiliated. You'll be, yes, and you'll be in there, humiliated.
فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم ينظرون. It will only be one shout, and at once they'll be observing.
And the second blowing of the trumpet here. This is the nafkhat الثانية, the second blowing of the trumpet.
وقالوا يا ويلنا هذا يوم الدين. They will say, oh, woe to us, this is the day of recompense. هذا يوم الفصل الذي كنتم به تكذبون. They'll be told, this is the day of judgment which you used to deny. احشروا الذين ظلموا وأزواجهم وما كانوا يعبدون. The angels will be ordered, gather those who committed wrong, their kinds and what they used to worship.
Now here, there's a view here about azwajuhum. Does azwajuhum here mean their wives? Yani gather them and their wives, or gather them and their spouses, because it can be women as well. And gather them and their spouses. That is also possible. Now, that's one thing. Any meaning their spouses who are together with them in kufr. That's also possible. Also from it is the azwaj here is the people who did similar to them. Any azwajuhum, their pairs. Or even better than that, the translation in the clear Qur'an, their peers. The people who they were together with them. They resembled them. And that which they used to worship. And Muhsin Khan has their companions from the devils.
من دون الله فاهدوهم إلى صراط الجحيم. Other than Allah, and guide them to the path of hellfire.
Other than Allah, because it means that they worshipped Allah, but they worshipped others besides Him. So everything that they worshipped besides Allah, that was content to be worshipped, like Fir'aun, guide them to the path of Jahim.
وَقِفُوهُمْ إِنَّهُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ. And stop them, indeed they are to be questioned.
In here, it also shows that the questioning will take place with the kafir as well. It's not just the believer that will be questioned, rather the kafir will be questioned on their way to Jahannam.
مَا لَكُمْ لَا تَنَاصَرُونَ. They'll be asked, what is wrong with you? Why do you not help each other? بَلْ هُمُ الْيَوْمَ مُسْتَسْلِمُونَ. But they are in surrender.
That's the meaning of Islam, right? Al-istislam. They'll be surrendering. And on that day, they will have surrendered themselves. They will not have any argument to say that to ask someone for help besides Allah.
وَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. And they will approach one another asking each other.
And they will blame each other. That's what it means. وَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. They will debate with each other. They will have this takhasum, this arguing with each other, blaming each other, fighting with each other.
قالوا إنكم كنتم تأتوننا عن اليمين. They will say, indeed, you used to come at us from the right.
It's seen, why is the right mentioned here? Why used to come to us from the right? And here, there's two options here, or there are many options. The clear Qur'an mentions 4 of them. But broadly, these options are going to come down to 2 views. Or 3. Now, 2 views or 3 views that they're going to come back to. The first view is that al-yamin here, it means the place of truth. And you came to us from the place of where we would have expected truth to have come. Al-yamin. And in other words, you came to us where we would have expected truth. In the position where we were expecting truth, you came to us from it. So you blocked us from seeing the truth. In other words, you stood in the way between us and between the truth. And you tricked us and you blocked us from the truth. It's also said that al-yamin here refers to strength and power. You came to us from a position of power. So you forced us, you pressured us. And it's also said that yamin here is an oath. You came to us where you swore oaths. You swore al-yamin. It's interesting, it's very, very interesting point here. Why is that you came to us from al-Yamin? What does it mean, al-Yamin here? Let's see which one As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala prefers. He said, al-Quwwa wal-Ghalaba. That's what he said. It means the position of strength. That's his preference for it. You came bil-Yamin, yani with power, with a position of strength. You came to us from that position. Or you came to us from a position of where we expected the truth to come. And you appeared, either you blocked us from the truth, or you appeared in a way that you were bringing the truth. Or you swore oaths to us. And all of those can also be true.
قالوا بل لم تكونوا مؤمنين. They will say, rather you yourselves were not believers.
And that's true. We've heard that before, that the argument of the mustada'afin, the people who were weak in society, those people will argue, you people came to us bil yamin, and you came to us with strength, and you were our leaders and tribal chiefs, and you told us not to believe, so we just followed you. Rather, reality is both of you chose not to believe.
وما كان لنا عليكم من سلطان بل كنتم قوما طاغين. And we had over you no authority, but you was transgressing people.
And so that's why some of them chose that Yamin here means Quwwa, because it's in context of the ayat. They reply back and say, actually, you people said we had strength over you, but we didn't have authority to stop you believing. Sahih, we might have been strong people in the society, but Allah did not give us the ability to stop you from Iman. Or we had the ability to threaten, to tell you we're going to do this to you, that to you, to tell people don't go leave your fathers. But we didn't have the ability to stop you having Iman.
فحق علينا قول ربنا إنا لذائقون. So the word of our Lord has come into effect upon us. Indeed, we'll taste punishment.
In all of us. In inna, here they switch from saying us and you. They were talking about you people are not like this, we are not. Now it switches to say all of us are going to taste the punishment. Those who were al-mustada'afun, the weak and the oppressed, and those who were al-mala and al-mustakbirun, the people who are the powerful people in society.
فَأَغْوَيْنَاكُمْ إِنَّا كُنَّا غَاوِينَ. And we led you to deviation. Indeed, we were deviators.
I think here, if we said deviators, it would be better to say deviant. And I think the reason is it conveys the message that we misguided you because we were misguided. We actually caused you to deviate because we ourselves were deviant.
فَإِنَّهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ فِي الْعَذَابِ مُشْتَرِكُونَ. So indeed that they will be sharing in the punishment. إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ. Indeed, that is how we deal with the criminals. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا إِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. Indeed, they, when it was said to them, there is no deity but Allah, were arrogant.
If there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah, they were arrogant.
وَيَقُولُونَ أَإِنَّا لَتَارِكُو آلِهَتِنَا لِشَاعِرٍ مَجْنُونَ. And were saying, are we to leave our gods for a mad poet?
No.
بَلْ جَاءَ بِالْحَقِّ وَصَدَّقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Rather, he has come with the truth and confirmed the previous messengers.
Confirmed the truth of them. And also the qira'ah came here also, وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And he believed in the previous messengers. We haven't done a lot of qira'ah, to be honest, but just every now and again something comes to mind. So it came صَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ and صَدَّقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And صَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, he believed in the messengers, and صَدَّقَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, he showed that those messengers were true, and he confirmed the truth of them.
إِنَّكُمْ لَذَائِقُو الْعَذَابِ الْأَلِيمِ. Indeed, you disbelievers will be tasters of the painful punishment. وَمَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And you will not be recompensed except for what they used to do.
And you'll not be punished for something that you didn't do.
إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. But not the chosen servants of Allah.
Here, the qira'ah, like many other places in the Qur'an, there is a qira'ah, Ibn Kathir and others, who read mukhlisin here. It's very important, extremely important. Because the qira'ah here, each one explains the other. Al-mukhlasin are the people who have been chosen by Allah. Okay, they've been chosen by Allah, so they are mukhlasin. Allah chose them out of His creation. And al-mukhlisin are the people who are sincere. So it came both ways. Illa ibadallahi al-mukhlisin. It came in a qira'ah like that. Illa ibadallahi al-mukhlisin. The only people who will be exempt from the punishment are the sincere people, the people of ikhlas, and the people that Allah chose them. For both of them are correct.
أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ رِزْقٌ مَعْلُومٌ. Those will have a provision determined.
A provision that is known. And we've been told about their provision.
فَوَاكِهُ وَهُمْ مُكْرَمُونَ. Fruits, and they will be honored.
Any fruits of every type.
فِي جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ. In gardens of pleasure. على سرر متقابلين. On thrones facing one another. يطاف عليهم بكأس من معين. There will be circulated among them a cup of wine from a flowing spring.
And the flowing spring here is the rivers of wine, or the river of wine. In the rivers of wine in Jannah. And the river is, as Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, that لا فيها غول, and it doesn't cause intoxication.
بيضاء لذة للشاربين. White and delicious to the drinkers.
And the wine.
لا فيها غول ولا هم عنها ينزفون. No bad effect is there in it, nor from it will they be intoxicated.
Al-ghawl here is wallahu alam, and it can mean two things. It means a hangover, any pain that comes from drinking alcohol, any headache, pain, any stomach ache, the pains that come from drinking alcohol, either when drinking it or either after drinking it. And how much you drink, you will not get pain from it. You will not throw up. You will not collapse. You will not wake up with a headache, however much you drink of it. And also the ghawl here is the sin. There's no sin in it. So there's no sin, there's no evil behavior. It doesn't make you behave badly towards others. It doesn't make you lose your haya. Nor does it intoxicate them.
وَعِندَهُمْ قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ عِينٌ. And with them will be women limiting their glances with large, beautiful eyes.
What does it mean, قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ? It means they can't look at anyone else. And Allah created that woman from the Hur al-Ain, the women who've never known this world. She's only known Jannah. Created by Allah Azza wa Jal, created her with His hands, subhanahu wa ta'ala. She only looks at her husband. She doesn't have any desire for anyone except her husband, except the one that Allah created her for in Jannah. And Ain, don't read it as Ain. You read it correctly. Afwan, I'm telling the people, a lot of people, they say Hurun Ain. It's not Ain, it's Ain. Ain doesn't mean Ain. Ain is your eye. Ain, what it means is, it's the form of, I think they call it any ayan. I think that's how it is. And he's someone that has very wide eyes. The plural of it, of the one that has very wide eyes, is ayn. And you describe someone as having ayan, as having very big eyes. as having wide eyes. That's a description of someone. The plural of it is عين. فحور عين. Yani they are beautiful women with wide eyes. قاصرات الطرف, they only have a desire to look at their husband that they were created for.
كأنهن بيض مكنون, as if they were delicate eggs, well protected.
Yani hidden away, not displayed for the people. And some of them said also pearls. Yani either pearls, bayd, either pearls or eggs. Yani something which is how a pearl is hidden inside of an oyster, inside of the shell, or like how the egg is hidden and covered up, and you can't get access to it.
فأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتساءلون, and they will approach one another inquiring of each other.
So this is different. The tasa'ul of Ahlul Jannah is different from the tasa'ul of Ahlul Nar. The people of the fire, their tasa'ul, they're asking each other, is an asking of blame. Yani you're the one who put me in hell. No, you're the one who put me in hell. Allah give him more punishment. No, Allah give you more punishment. They're fighting with each other in hell. Like in Jannah, they're asking each other, they're inquiring about each other inquisitively. And when you, subhanAllah, when you succeed in something, you can have a parallel in this life. When you succeed in something, afterwards you talk over it, right? You achieve something, the battle is over. So everyone turns to everyone else and asks them, how was that for you? What did you do? How did you? For the people of Jannah, when they ask each other, they don't ask each other in a way of blame. And it was your fault. It was like in a way of remembering Allah's blessings upon them.
قال قائل منهم إني كان لي قرين, and a speaker among them will say, indeed I had a companion on earth.
Now, I want to just see quickly this qareen here that is mentioned. And let me bring it now. Now, As-Sa'di doesn't mention more about who the qareen is here. Is it just his companion from the human beings, or is it the one who whispers to him from the jinn? We'll go back to it, inshallah. We'll check it.
يقول أئنك لمن المصدقين, who would say, are you indeed of those who believe? أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أإنا لمدينون, that when we have died and become dust and bones, we will indeed be recompensed. قال هل أنتم مطلعون, he will say, would you care to look?
And to his companions in paradise, the person in paradise will say, do you want to see what happened to that companion of mine? If you look now, look for a moment and see what happened to that companion of mine.
فاطلع فرآه في سواء الجحيم, and he will look and see him in the midst of the hellfire.
In that companion of his who tried to take him away from Iman on this earth.
قال تالله إن كدت لتردين, he will say, by Allah, you almost ruined me.
And by this bad companion that took me away from the remembrance of Allah, and who tried to take me away, you almost ruined me.
ولولا نعمة ربي لكنت من المحضرين, if not for the favor of my Lord, I would have been of those brought into hell. أفما نحن بميتين, then are we not to die? إلا,
now this is the statement of the people of Jannah. He will ask, are we not to die? He's asking the people of paradise, not in the sense that will we die here in paradise. Like it's almost in the way of the statement. The clear Qur'an gets the meaning well. Can you imagine that we would never die? Is it true that we now in paradise are never going to die?
إلا موتتنا الأولى وما نحن بمعذبين. Except for our first death, and will not be punished.
In the death that we had in the world, and that Allah has decided not to punish us ever. And that's the ridwan, which Allah said about it, وَرِضْوَانٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. That greater than all of the things that you have in paradise, from the rivers and the honey and the wine, any greater than all of those, وَرِضْوَانٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ, is that Allah is never going to punish you again.
إن هذا لهو الفوز العظيم. Indeed, this is the great attainment.
نعم.
لمثل هذا فليعمل العاملون. For the like of this, let the workers on earth work.
And he let people, now everyone should be striving for this. That's what you should be working for in this life, to be from those people.
أذلك خير نزلا أم شجرة الزقوم. Is that a better accommodation or the tree of Zaqum?
And nuzul is what you prepare for your guest. And is it better that they should be enjoying what they are enjoying, and speaking among each other, talking about paradise? Or is it better that a person should be eating from the tree of Zaqum? This is the tree that the Prophet ﷺ told us about it. And this is الشجرة الملعونة في القرآن. That's mentioned in which surah?
شجرة الزقوم طعام الأثم السخن.
إلا فتنة للناس والشجرة الملعونة في القرآن ونخوفهم. سورة الإسراء. سورة الإسراء. This is a شجرة الملعونة في القرآن, the cursed tree that is mentioned in the Qur'an. Surah شجرة الزقوم. And it's a tree that grows in the base of Jahannam. If a drop from this tree was to be placed on this earth, it would end life on this earth. For how about the people who fill their stomachs with it?
إنا جعلناها فتنة للظالمين. Indeed, we have made it a torment for the wrongdoers.
Now, the torment is what is mentioned.
إنها شجرة تخرج في أصل الجحيم. Indeed, it is a tree issuing from the bottom of the hellfire.
And remember, Jahannam is full of fire. For what tree, what a wicked tree, that this tree grows in Jahannam. And it's sufficient to know how evil this tree is, that this tree grows where? It grows in the worst place that has ever been created. Among the burning, among the wounds, among the melted flesh. It's an evil tree that grows from the base of Jahannam, the worst place in Jahannam it grows from.
طلعها كأنه رؤوس الشياطين. It's emerging fruit as if it was heads of the devils.
And you don't. It's interesting here. You don't know how the devil looks, huh? There's a fa'idah. The ayah says it's like the heads of the devil. Like in Allah Azza wa Jal resembled it to something you don't know. It's as though Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, there is nothing filthy enough on this world that I can compare this tree, that you can understand how evil this tree is, except to say that its fruit resembles the heads of shaitan. Now, you've never seen shaitan like that. But what do you imagine? If you imagine the shaitan, you imagine the most filthy, ugly, terrifying, scary creature. That's the fruit of a zaqum.
فإنهم لآكلون منها فمالئون منها البطون. And indeed they will eat from it and fill with it their bellies.
وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ.
ثم إن لهم عليها لشوبا من حميم. Then indeed they will have after it a mixture of scalding water.
Now, because what will happen is they will eat from the tree of Zaqum and they will fill their stomach with it. And that tree is a tree that is poisonous. And it's a tree that cuts them from the inside. For their insides become cut and poisoned and rotten from it. So they beg Allah for water. So Allah Azza wa Jal gives them scalding water. And that water melts the skin from their faces and their insides.
ثم إن مرجعهم لإلى الجحيم. Then indeed their return will be to the hellfire.
And they return to being burnt once again.
إنهم ألفوا آباءهم ضالين. Indeed they found their fathers astray.
And also, As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala mentions a benefit here. He says, if the fruit looks like the head of shaitan, how do you think it tastes? فهذا also, it's balagha, it's eloquence. That if it looks like that, what do you think of the taste of it? Then I want to say, نعم. نعم. مرجعهم doesn't necessarily mean, and here we can check it again also, but it doesn't necessarily mean that their fire will be taken away from them at that time, that the hellfire will stop burning them. But just the marji' here is that their mustaqar, the place they'll just be in it forever, is the burning fire. And I don't think that they get to step out of the fire to eat from zaqqum, and then they get to go back into the fire is their permanent, and it's their marji' for them, the place they're always in it all the time. Like, and we'll check about it, a bit more about that, inshallah ta'ala.
فهم على آثارهم يهرعون.
Afwan, before that, إنهم ألفوا آباءهم ضالين. Now, they found their fathers astray, and now you can read the English for this one. So they hastened.
Indeed, they found their fathers astray, so they hastened to follow in their footsteps.
Now, they followed the footsteps of their fathers. So they blame their fathers. You people misguided us. But in the end of the day, you followed in their footsteps. You chose to walk in the footsteps of those fathers. لا يعقلون شيئا ولا يهتدون. They had no intellect and no guidance.
وَلَقَدْ ضَلَّ قَبَلَهُمْ أَكْثَرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And they had already strayed before them most of the former peoples.
So that shows that the majority of people on this earth have been misguided. Majority of people. So you should never ever look at the majority. The majority is never what is important in terms of as a proof of guidance.
وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا فِيهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ. And we'd already sent among them warners.
No.
فانظر كيف كان عاقبة المنذرين. Then look how was the end of those who were warned.
Because they were given a warning, so it's justice, because they were given a fair warning.
إلا عباد الله المخلصين. But not the chosen servants of Allah.
Chosen, and then as well you can bring in the other qira'ah. إلا عباد الله المخلصين. The sincere, those who had ikhlas.
وَلَقَدْ نَادَانَا نُوحٌ فَلَنِعْمَ الْمُجِيبُونَ. And Nuh has certainly called us, and we are the best of responders.
And he made dua to us.
وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. And we saved him and his family from the great affliction.
And the believers in his family, and him and his believing family.
وَجَعَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُ هُمُ الْبَاقِينَ. And we made his descendants those remaining on the earth.
نعم.
وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And left for him favorable mention among later generations.
And that the people mention Nuh with goodness among the believers. Every believer who came after Nuh mentions Nuh with goodness, right? And not just the Muslims, before the people of Musa, the people of Isa, the people of Ibrahim, all of them, the believers mentioned Nuh with goodness.
Salamun ala Nuh fil alamin. Peace upon, salam upon Nuh among the worlds.
Now, better we say salam to give the most complete meaning. That Nuh was given salam. So salam includes peace, it includes being safe, it includes having nothing, Allah protected him from flaws. And this also refutes the ayah, Salamun ala Nuh, refutes also the belief of the Jews and Christians who said that Nuh was a drunkard, and he was found intoxicated, and so on. And this is Salamun ala Nuh. Allah Azza wa Jal sallama, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sallama Nuhan, and he kept him safe from the things that would take away from his status and honor.
Inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good. Innahu min ibadina al-mu'minin. Indeed, he was of our believing servants. ثم أغرقنا الآخرين. Then we drowned the others. وَإِنَّ مِن شِيعَتِهِ لَإِبْرَاهِيمَ. And indeed among his kind was Ibrahim.
Among his kind or among those who followed him. And that Ibrahim here is given as a one following the path of Nuh, because Nuh is the first who is sent with a message to a people who disbelieve in him. Adam was given revelation by Allah, and he was given prophethood. But the message, the first message that was given to mankind was Nuh. So who is following along in his footsteps? Ibrahim.
إِذْ جَاءَ رَبَّهُ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. When he came to his Lord with a sound heart.
In a heart that was full of tawheed. So it was free of shirk.
إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ مَاذَا تَعْبُدُونَ. And when he said to his father and his people, what do you worship?
أئفكا
أئفكا آلهة دون الله تريدون. Is it falsehood as gods other than Allah you desire?
That everything you worship besides Allah is an ifk. It's a lie against Allah and a falsehood.
فَمَا ظَنُّكُمْ بِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Then what is your thought about the Lord of the worlds?
Then what do you think? What you people believe Allah exists? You believe Allah is your creator? What is it that you think or expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
فنظر نظرة
الضاء here, be careful about it.
فنظر نظرة في النجوم. And he cast a look at the stars.
Now here, the nadhara he cast at the stars was in order to give people a false impression here. It was tawriyah. And this is one of the examples where Ibrahim said about himself, al-kadhib, that I said something that wasn't true. Like, it's not al-kadhib al-muharram here. It's not the lie that is prohibited. It's not a haram. But what he did was tawriyah. So he looked at the stars. They say the reason he looked at the stars is to give a false narrative to his people. That the people thought that the stars told Ibrahim that he couldn't go to the festival. Do you understand what I mean? Like, as if they had a superstition about it. So he said he looked at the stars. They say that's why he looked. Some of them said in contemplation. Like what is meant here is that they believe the stars govern your health and sickness. That they believe that. They used to believe the stars, like the horoscopes. They used to believe the stars tell you when you're going to be sick and healthy. So Ibrahim never said he believed in the stars, but he looked at them in a way that gave his people the impression that he was looking at the stars. Now,
فَقَالَ إِنِّي سَقِيمٌ. And said, indeed, I am about to be ill.
Now, and here it's not that it's not that he actually lied here. Wallahu alam. But that he gave them an impression. Because the word saqim here, it has different meanings to it. Like, in what they understood from it is that he was sick, or I'm going to be sick. And I feel like I'm going to be sick. And I feel like I'm going to be ill. Like he looked at the stars and then he said, I feel like I'm going to be ill. So he was able to remain in the temple to destroy the idols when the people left. Like, and he never said to them that the stars have told me I'm ill or that I've seen my future in the stars. But he gave them a false impression. For this itself is not forbidden, but Ibrahim felt shy of it. And Allah Azza wa Jal praised him for what he did. Like, and Ibrahim felt shy of it. And Yawm al-Qiyamah, then the people ask him, he mentions these three things. What are the three things he mentions? Inni saqim, that's one of them. What's the other one? قال بل فعله كبيرهم هذا. He said the big one did it. When they asked him who broke all of the idols, he said, that big one over there. He took the axe, he ran around the idols and like, and Ibrahim doesn't say that to them. He gives them the impression of it. Like, and he says, in kanu yantiqun. If they really do speak and move around, then it must be the big one that did it. And if they speak. But also here he's actually inviting them to think about it. He knows, he's saying, I know that the big one didn't do it, and you know the big one didn't do it. But you're the ones who say that they answer your dua and so I must be that the big one, I guess it's the big one who did it. What's the third lie that he felt shy about? His wife, when he said, she's my sister. So in none of them did Ibrahim do something forbidden. Like in Ibrahim felt shy of it. You know, Yawm al-Qiyamah, you remember even the things, and he felt shy of it. That's in Ibrahim, alayhi salatu wasalam, didn't. The prophets don't lie. But three things he said that were not in the lying here is not al-kadhib al-istilahi. It's not the kadhib lying in the sharia. The lying is lying in the lugha. What's lying in the lugha? Al-ikhbar bi khilaf al-waqi'. I said something that wasn't actually how things were going to be. And for example, I said that I'm going to be sick, when that's not the reality of what they understood from me is not the reality of what it was. And when I said, if you think they speak, then the big one did it. Then it wasn't the big one who did it. And I said, she's my sister and she's my sister in Islam, like she was my wife.
فَتَوَلَّوْا عَنْهُ مُدْبِرِينَ. So they turned away from him, departing. فَرَاغَ إِلَىٰ آلِهَتِهِمْ فَقَالَ أَلَا تَأْكُلُونَ. Then he turned to their gods and said, do you not eat?
Naam. And here's the offerings in front of you, and he's speaking to the idols in a way that is mocking them. Like, here's the trays of food in front of you. Don't you want to eat? These people have put trays of food in front of you. Are you not going to eat now? He knows that they don't eat now.
مَا لَكُمْ لَا تَنْطِقُونَ. What is wrong with you that you do not speak?
And what's the matter with you? Neither do you eat the food, nor do you speak.
فَرَاغَ عَلَيْهِمْ ضَرْبًا بِالْيَمِينِ. And he turned upon them a blow with his right hand.
And he took the axe and he smashed all of the idols into pieces except the big one. What did he do to the big one? He took the axe and he hung it around his head. So he could say to the people, if you people believe that your idols can do things and they have power, then why don't you believe that the big one chopped up all the little ones?
فَأَقْبَلُوا إِلَيْهِ يَزِفُّونَ. Then they came toward him hastening.
And he rushing towards him out of anger. And who did this? مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا. Who did this to our gods? It's really interesting the way it's said in Surah Al-Anbiya. It's really pathetic the way that they speak. They said, who hurt our gods? Do you see the contradiction in it? مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا. He's wronged our gods. He's hurt them. They're your gods. They're supposed to be the things that you worship. They bring you benefit. And they couldn't even prevent harm from themselves.
قال أتعبدون ما تنحتون. He said, do you worship that which you yourselves carve?
And you yourself don't ask any who created this idol. You people yourselves carved the idol. They say that Ibrahim's father was responsible for the temple, or that Ibrahim's father used to be the one that carved them.
Well,
so how can you carve something with your own hands? You are the one who took your chisel and you made it out of the wood, or you carved it, and then now you worship it, when you yourself were the ones who with your own hands cut it up.
وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. While Allah created you and that which you do.
Here is interesting. The translation is correct from the Aqidah point of view. But it's not actually, I don't believe it's the most accurate translation. The Aqidah in it is correct. In Wallahu khalaqakum, Allah created you, wama ta'malun, and what you do. Like, that's not the most correct translation, Wallahu alam, of the ayah. The ayah is that Allah created you and what you make. Allah created you and Allah created the idols that you make with your hands. Like we say, even if we say that that is the correct translation, both translations are a proof for the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah for khalqu af'al al-ibad. And this ayah is the asl. And you need this in Aqidah, so you need to make a note of it. That this ayah is very, very important to the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah. That this ayah is the asl in the proof of khalq af'al al-ibad. That our actions are created by Allah. Wallahu khalaqakum wama ta'malun. Allah created you and Allah created the idols that you people fashion with your own hands. طيب. I said to you that I don't believe the stronger translation is to say that ta'malun here means your actions. Allah created you and your actions. Some people from Ahl Sunnah said it. The Aqidah is correct, no doubt. Allah created you and Allah created your actions. There is no doubt about it. But why are both of them a proof? Actually, both, whether you translate it this way or that way, both of them are a proof. If you say Allah created you and your actions, then it's wadah, right? It's easy to understand. Allah created you and Allah created your actions. But even if you say it refers to Allah created you and the idols you make, which is the Muhsin Khan translation, and it's the more accurate one, wallahu alam, it's still a proof for khalq af'al al-ibad. Why? Because you yourselves are the ones who fashioned. In the previous ayah it says you carved these idols with your hands and Allah created you and Allah created the idols that you carve. Therefore your carving of the idol is part of Allah's creation. Does that now, everybody with me? Yeah, your carving of the idol is a part of Allah's creation. So there فيه يعني في الآية يعني فيها دليل على خلق أفعال العباد, that the أفعال of the ibad are مخلوقة, that the actions of the servants are created. يعني خلافا against يعني, for example, what the Mu'tazila يعني, and a group of the Tawa'if, they said, where they denied that Allah creates the actions of the people. Because they are the Mu'tazila are the inheritors of the original, the Qadariyah, right? So when we talk about, the hadith of Jibreel, the hadith of Jibreel, right? The famous hadith about the pillars of Islam and Iman. This was Jibreel, atakum yu'allimukum dinakum. Jibreel came here to teach you your religion. What was the reason for the hadith of Jibreel being narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar from his father Umar ibn Khattab? Why did he narrate it? Because two people came to him and said that there's a person called, they said the first person to speak about Qadr in Basra was a man called Ma'bad al-Juhani. He was the first person to deny Qadr. So they came to Abdullah ibn Umar to ask him in Hajj or Umrah, to ask him what's his view about what the Qadariyah are saying. That the Qadariyah are saying everything is random and that there is no qadr. So he narrated the hadith for that reason, to show the evil of the belief of the Qadariyah. Who inherited the belief of the Qadariyah? The Mu'tazila. They are the ones who, when they say the Qadariyah, generally what they mean by that is the Mu'tazila. They are the ones who took on that belief and pushed it forward. So the ayah is a refutation of them. And also you can go to, in terms of the Sunnah, Al-Imam al-Bukhari he wrote a book about it called Khalq Af'al al-Ibad, the proof that the actions of the servants are created. There's still an issue people might have. People might say, okay, the ayah says our actions are created, either directly or indirectly, and whether you take the direct translation of the ayah, Allah created you and Allah created your actions, or whether you take the indirect translation of the ayah, Allah created you and Allah created the idols you carve, both prove that your actions are created by Allah, because you're the one who carved the idols. So both of them prove your actions are created by Allah. However, there could be a question. How does Allah create our actions and still hold us to account for those actions? That's a very important question. Because we all agree we're held account for our actions, right? Man amila salihan fali nafsi. Whoever does good did it for themselves. Whoever does bad did it against themselves. So we understood that the bad actions we do are our responsibility. How did Allah create them? So to answer this question is very, very easy. I just want you to think about Adam, and I want you to think about yourself. Who created Adam? Everyone says Allah. How did Allah create Adam? Everyone says He created him from dust and clay, that which has been narrated. So if that is the case, Allah created Adam directly. Everyone's with so far? Allah created Adam directly. As for you and I, who created us? Everyone says Allah. But you came about as a biological process. You are a combination of the genes of your mother and father that combined together, and you were born as a result of your mother and father. So how can you say that Allah creates you? Very simple. Allah creates you indirectly. What do we mean indirectly? You're not like Adam. We all agree that we didn't come into this world like Adam. We were not created from clay. We didn't just turn up out of nothing. We came about as a result of a process. That process, how did it happen? Allah created within Adam the ability to have children. And Allah created for Adam Hawa, and created within Hawa the ability to bear children. The children of Adam have the ability to have children, and their children had the ability to have children. That ability Allah created within them is the indirect creation of Allah. And that's the case with your actions. Your actions come about because Allah created within you the ability to carry those actions out. Allah created within you the ability to speak and stand. For those actions, they are from Allah's creation. But just like you and I came about because of the process of any conception and childbirth, and that's part of Allah's creation, so your actions came about because of a process that Allah created within you, and that is part of Allah's creation. If a person were to say that they create their own actions, then this in reality is the belief of the Majus. This is the belief of the Zoroastrians. Because in reality, if you believe that you create your own actions, then there is a God of light and a God of dark. there is a God that creates good and a God that creates evil. This is the belief of the Majus. And that's why Imam al-Bukhari and Ahl Sunnah, they were staunch upon the Mu'tazila when they peddled this belief that people create their own actions. Rather, no one creates except Allah. But Allah creates some things out of nothing, and other things He creates out of His existing creation. صح? And he is existing creation. From that, He creates out of His existing creation. That's the case with your actions. وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. It's very, very important in ayah. And it's the fourth martaba min maratib al-qadr. The maratib al-qadr al-arba'a, there are 4 stages of belief in qadr. What are the 4 stages believing in qadr? The first one is al-ilm. That Allah Azza wa Jal knows everything that has been and everything that will be and everything that is and everything possible and everything impossible, and nothing escapes His knowledge. That's the first one. Al-martabatu thaniya, the second level of belief in qadr, is the belief that Allah Azza wa Jal al-kitaba, that Allah commanded the pen to write everything that will happen until Yawm al-Qiyamah. The third, and that's not hard for Allah, Allah knows it, and Allah commanded the pen to write it. And if I ask you to write your name, it's not hard, right? To write something you know. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. To Allah belongs the highest example. And we don't compare Allah to His creation, but we give an example by which you can understand what I'm saying. If you are asked to write something you know, it's not difficult. And Allah is not like His creation. He knows everything in the heavens and the earth. So Allah commanded the pen to write. The third level is al-mashi'ah, that everything happens by Allah's will. Everything good and everything evil happens by the mashi'ah of Allah Azza wa Jal. And included in that is that guidance and misguidance are in the hands of Allah. He guides as a grace and a favor. He misguides out of wisdom and justice. And the fourth is the one for which we brought the evidence here. وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. That everything, both objects and actions, are from Allah's creation. Any objects and actions. We should add to that for clarity that the Qur'an is kalamullah ghayru makhluq. The Qur'an is the speech of Allah and it's not created in any way, because it's the kalam of Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, here we have a mas'ala. What do you say about the recitation of someone's Qur'an? You have to be careful here. Don't say makhluq straight away and don't say ghayru makhluq straight away. Why? Because first clarify, what do you mean by recitation? Because here the word, it could mean what is recited. And what you're reciting is kalamullah Azza wa Jal. It's Allah's speech, ghayru makhluq. The words that you're reciting. Like in your voice, the sound of your voice. Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. Allah created you and Allah created the actions that you do. So like Ahl Sunnah used to say, as-sawtu sawtul qari wal kalamu kalamul bari. The voice is the voice of the qari and the speech is the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal. And it is a sifa lillahi Azza wa Jal. It's an attribute of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah's kalam is ghayru makhluq in any way. The words, the letters, the grammar, the sentence order, all of it is kalamullah ghayru makhluq.
قالوا بنوا له بنيانا فألقوه في الجحيم. They said, construct for him a structure and throw him into the burning fire.
نعم, Ibrahim.
فأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأسفلين. And they intended for him a plan, but we made them the most debased.
And we made them the lowest.
وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي سيهدين. And then he said, indeed, I will go to or by my Lord, he will guide me.
Who went with him? Hi, Jama'ah. Who went with him? Wallahi, sometimes I think I just sat here talking to myself. Lut went with him.
رَبِّ هَبَ لِي مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. My Lord, grant me a child from among the righteous. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. So we gave him good tidings of a forbearing boy.
Which boy? Ismail. Ismail here. Then after that, Ishaq. After that. It began with Ismail, and Sarah, she found it hard upon herself because she was not able to have Sarah was not able to have a child. So she suggested to Ibrahim that he take Hajar as his second wife. So when he took Hajar as a wife and Hajar had Ismail, it was hard upon Sarah. It was hard for her because she could not have a child, and then she saw that Ibrahim has a child through Hajar. So they left. Ibrahim went with Hajar to Mecca, and then after that, Sarah, she conceived Ishaq, which comes also, which we've spoken about in the story. For the ghulam here, wallahu alam, is Ismail, because after that, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعِي. That's the story of Ismail.
فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى قَالَ يَا أَبَتِ افْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرُ سَتَجِدُنِي إِن شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ.
Afwan, reiterate again from Satajiduni with the mad on Sha.
ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. And when he reached with him the age of exertion, he said, O my son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you. So see what you think. He said, O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, of the steadfast.
Now, As-Sa'i here, I want to see what As-Sa'di says about it, rahimahullah ta'ala. Now, As-Sa'i, there's two kind of views which are not necessarily conflicting, but they slightly alter the translation. As-Sa'i here, when he reached the age of walking along with his father, that's one view. And the As-Sa'i, the age of going around with his father. So, a child when he's very young is at the age of remaining home with his mother. Like in بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعِي, he reached the age of being someone around with his father, being along with his father. And another view is that As-Sa'i here is hard work, because Sa'i means to go back and forward. So when he reached the age of being around with his father, or when he reached the age of being able to assist his father in his work. Ibrahim said, "Oh my dear son, I have seen in a dream that I am slaughtering you." And the dreams of the prophets are haqq. And the dream has to come true. It's impossible now. There's no way that the dream cannot come true. The dream has to come true. And I've seen in the dream that I'm slaughtering you. So tell me, what do you see? What do you think? He said, "My father, do as you have been commanded. You will find me to be from the steadfast." But look at the excellence of Ismail here. That Ismail is told, "I'm going to have to take a knife and cut your throat." And Ismail doesn't hesitate. He doesn't say that, "My father, ask Allah." He says, "Do what you've been told. You'll find me to be. I'm going to be patient for you. I'm not going to fight against it." Look at the sabr of the prophets alayhimus salatu wassalam.
فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَا وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. And when they had both submitted, and he put him down on his forehead.
Now, they both submitted to the command of Allah. Ibrahim submitted that I will have to do this, and Ismail submitted that I will have it done to me.
وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَن يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ. We called to him, O Ibrahim. قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. You have fulfilled the vision. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good.
Now, because Ibrahim in the dream saw himself put the knife on his son's neck, but he didn't see himself cut the neck. Now, he saw himself in the dream slaughtering him, yani putting him on the ground, putting the knife upon his neck, and the dream ended. For Ibrahim, and he saw that I'm slaughtering him in the dream. Like in the minute that he fulfilled what the dream said, Allah Azza wa Jal said to him, قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا. You have fulfilled the dream already.
إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْبَلَاءُ الْمُبِينُ. Indeed, this was the clear trial. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. And we ransomed him with a great sacrifice.
There's another view, Wallahu alam, that he saw himself fully slaughtering Ismail in the dream. But the meaning of Saddaqta Ru'ya, you did what you were told to do and you fulfilled the command of the dream, and now we have saved him from what you saw. That's also acceptable. That's also a possibility. We'll look into which one of them is the more correct, inshallah. There's also a view, Sa'di indicates it, that you did, meaning you did everything you were told. You were told to bring the child, you were told to bring the knife, you were told to lay him down, you were told to put the knife on his neck. Now we've exempted you from what is to follow.
وَتَرَكْنَا.
وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. We ransomed him with a great sacrifice. Allah Azza wa Jal sent a ram from the heavens to be sacrificed instead of Ismail. So the ram replaced, instead of sacrificing Ismail, he sacrificed the ram. And from this is the sacrifice on Eid al-Adha. And this is where we get the sacrifice from on Eid al-Adha. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ.
وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And we left for him favorable mention among later generations.
As we said, that the people mention Ibrahim with good.
سَلَامٌ عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ. Salam upon Ibrahim. كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, he was of our believing servants. وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And we gave him good tidings of Ishaq, a prophet from among the righteous.
Now, this is very important here. This tells us for sure that the child was Ismail, as opposed to who says that it was Ishaq. The Yahud and the Nasara, both of them. The Jews and the Christians say that the child was Ishaq. Why? There's a very important reason why they have to believe the child is Ishaq. Because they have been told that the Messiah will come from the lineage of the child that was slaughtered. For the minute they say Ismail, they have to accept the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And that's why never, ever, ever will they accept that the slaughtered child was Ismail. Because if they accept that the slaughtered child was Ismail, then they have to accept the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ after that. So for that reason, they changed the book with their own hands, and they changed the name of the child. They kept it as Ibrahim's firstborn, That's true. It was Ibrahim's firstborn child. But somehow they flipped it that Ishaq was born first. Like, if Ishaq was born first, there is no need. The whole story of Ismail, there is no thing about it. Yani. The departure of Hajar and it doesn't make any sense. Yani. Apart from the fact that the Qur'an tells us clearly that Ismail was the firstborn child and Ismail was the one who was sacrificed. Like, it seems to me the reason is if they believed that Ismail was the one sacrificed, they have to accept prophethood will come from the children of Ismail. And that means only they have the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
وباركنا عليه وعلى إسحاق ومن ذريتهما محسن وظالم لنفسه مبين. And we blessed him and Ishaq, but among their descendants is the doer of good and the clearly unjust to himself.
Either we blessed Ibrahim and Ishaq, or we blessed Ismail and Ishaq. And from their offspring are doers of good and those who clearly wronged themselves.
وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. And we did certainly confer favor upon Musa and Harun.
No.
وَنَجَّيْنَاهُمَا وَقَوْمَهُمَا مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. And we saved them and their people from the great affliction.
No.
وَنَصَرْنَاهُمْ فَكَانُوا هُمُ الْغَالِبِينَ. And we supported them, so it was they who overcame.
No.
وَآتَيْنَاهُمَا الْكِتَابَ الْمُسْتَبِينَ. And we gave them the explicit scripture.
In the Torah.
وَهَدَيْنَاهُمَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. And we guided them on the straight path. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِمَا فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And we left for them favorable mention among later generations.
Here it should say we left for them both. And also in the previous one, we guided them both to the right path and we gave them both. The reason is that in the ayah, وَنَصَرْنَاهُمْ, it means Bani Israel. We saved Bani Israel. That's in ayah number 116. We saved Bani Israel. But in ayah 117, we gave the scripture, and ayah 118, we guided them to the straight path, and 119, we left them a favorable mention among the generations. The referral is Musa and Harun, not Bani Israel specifically, but Musa and Harun, we gave them the scripture. Musa and Harun, we guided to the straight path, and Musa and Harun, we gave them a favorable mention among the later generations.
Salamun ala Musa wa Harun. Salam upon Musa and Harun.
No.
Inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good. Innahuma min ibadina al-mu'minin. Indeed, they were of our believing servants. وَإِنَّ إِلْيَاسَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And indeed, Ilyas was from among the messengers.
No.
إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. When he said to his people, will you not fear Allah?
And will you not have taqwa? أَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. Will you not have taqwa? That was the message of all the prophets, right? وَلَقَدْ وَصَيْنَا الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ أَنِ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. Everyone given the scripture before, as well as you, have been commanded to have taqwa of Allah.
أَتَدْعُونَ بَعْلًا وَتَذَرُونَ أَحْسَنَ الْخَالِقِينَ. Do you call upon Ba'al, right? And leave the best of creation.
Ba'al is one of their major idols. And again, the best of creators is a poor translation here. The best of creators is Ahsanul Khaliqeen, should not be translated as the best of creators. But in my view, that's a poor, very poor translation. Because you're indicating that there are people that create from nothing other than Allah. Rather, it should say the best of inventors or the best of those who design or something like that. The word Khaliq here does not mean creator. أَتَدْعُونَ بَعْلًا. Do you make dua to Ba'al and you leave the best of those who invent and design was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Allah rabbakum wa rabba abaikum al-awwaleen. Allah your Lord and the Lord of your first forefathers.
Your early, the forefathers before you. I don't think first forefathers is not needed. First, it's kind of a repetition. The Lord of your forefathers now.
فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَإِنَّهُمْ لَمُحْضَرُونَ. And they denied him, so indeed they will be brought for punishment. إِلَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Except the chosen servants of Allah.
And the mukhlasin, the sincere servants of Allah.
وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And we left for him favorable mention among later generations. سَلَامٌ عَلَى إِلْيَاسِينَ. Salam upon Ilyas.
Now, it would have been better if here they actually wrote it as Ilyasin. Because when they write Ilyas, maybe people don't see that it's a different name that is mentioned here. Salamun ala Ilyasin. So there's two views about it. One view is that Ilyasin is another name for Ilyas. And it's a variation of Ilyas's name. Ilyas and Ilyasin. And it's also, there's a view that Ilyasin is a plural here. And what it means is Ilyas and his followers. Ilyas and those who believed in him. So it would have been better if they had written Ilyasin instead of saying Ilyas. As is in Muhsin Khan. Salam upon Ilyasin.
إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, he was of our believing servants. وَإِنَّ لُوطًا لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And indeed, Lut was among the messengers. إِذْ نَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ أَجْمَعِينَ. So mention when we saved him and his family all.
Mention or remember. Remember is also very common here. إِذْ. Usually in the Qur'an, sometimes say إِذْ means mention, but usually they say إِذْ when it comes in the Qur'an at the beginning of each ayah. It means remember. And you remember when we. Remember when, or mention when, both of them. And they're both of you. So there's a lot of discussion among the scholars of Tafseer about this word إِذْ. Because إِذْ here, it's a shortened form of something. And there has to be a word before it that is understood. So some of them say, أُذْكُر, remember إِذْ, remember when. Or inform the people when. We saved him and his family, all of them.
إِلَّا عَجُوزًا فِي الْغَابِرِينَ. Except an old woman among those who remained with the evildoers.
His wife now. His wife now.
ثُمَّ دَمَّرْنَا الْآخَرِينَ. Then we destroyed the others. وَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهِمْ مُصْبِحِينَ. And indeed you passed by them in the morning.
The people of Mecca passed by in the morning on their way to Syria, on their way to Sham. They would pass by the Dead Sea, the destruction of the people of Lut.
وَبِاللَّيْلِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. And at night, then will you not use reason?
And here would be better to stop. وَبِاللَّيْلِ, even though it's both acceptable. But here, وَبِاللَّيْلِ, and you also pass by them at night. Then will you not use reason? Who else did they used to pass by? Which other ruin did they used to pass by? Thamud, they passed by. Because they passed by Thamud on the way to Yemen. So when they would travel to Yemen, they would pass by the destruction of did we say Thamud, or did we say they would pass? No, Thamud. We said Ad. They would pass by. Thamud. They would also pass by. Thamud. They would pass by. So we said they knew of the places of the destruction of Ad and Thamud. Also Madian. Madian. They would also pass by. On their trip to Syria and their trips to Yemen, they would pass by the places where these people were destroyed.
وَإِنَّ يُونُسَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And indeed Yunus was among the messengers.
Yeah.
إِذْ أَبَقَ إِلَى الْفُلْكِ الْمَشْحُونَ. And mention when he ran away to the laden ship.
And when they use the word abaqa here, it's very powerful, and it's a very interesting use of the word. Abaqa is what you say when a servant or a slave runs away from his master. And you say abdun abiq. He's a slave who ran away. And meaning that he was not supposed to leave. It was not his command to leave yet. Like, he didn't believe he was disobeying Allah, and he thought that there was no benefit, and he thought that there's nothing for me to stay for. My people have been destroyed. But he didn't wait for the command to leave.
فَسَاهَمَ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْمُدْحَضِينَ. And he drew lots and was among the losers.
And to be determined who would be cast overboard.
فَالْتَقَمَهُ الْحُوتُ وَهُوَ مُلِيمٌ. Then the fish swallowed him while he was blameworthy.
And the fish or the whale, because he gave up hope in his people prematurely before Allah commanded him to leave.
فَلَوْلَا أَنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُسَبِّحِينَ. And had he not been of those who exalt Allah.
Here, very important, what saved Yunus from being destroyed in the fish? His tasbih, his prayers. Tasbih can be a word for prayers. His prayers, his saying subhanallah, his dhikr, that's what saved him. فَلَوْلَا أَنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُسَبِّحِينَ. If it wasn't for the fact that he was from the people that used to make the tasbih and used to say subhanallah, or the people who used to pray. Because the tasbih, it means prayer and it means saying subhanallah. But that's what saved him.
لَلَبِثَ فِي بَطَنِهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. He would have remained inside its belly until the day they are resurrected.
And it would have become his grave.
فَنَبَذْنَاهُ بِالْعَرَاءِ وَهُوَ سَقِيمٌ. But we threw him into the open shore while he was ill.
He was ill from the belly of the fish. They say that it caused his skin it caused damage to his skin because of the acid or whatever it might be. And it caused him to be extremely sick.
وَأَنبَتْنَا عَلَيْهِ شَجَرَةً مِّن يَقْطِينٍ. And we caused to grow over him a gourd vine.
So the gourd vine does three things. The first thing is that it saves him from the sun. And it stops the sun from... He's crashed out on the shore. He's completely, like you would say, half dead. And he completely crashed out on the shore. His skin is all burnt and damaged. So Allah Azza wa Jal causes the plant of the gourd. The gourd is the plant which is like the squash or the pumpkin or the that family. So sometimes people don't know what the gourd is, but it's like similar to a pumpkin, like a pumpkin or a squash, to grow over him. So it protects him from the sun. And that's the first thing. The second thing that it does is it protects him from the insects. And the third thing is that it provides relief to his skin. And Allah knows best.
وَأَرْسَلْنَاهُ إِلَى 100,000 أَوْ يَزِيدُونَ. And we sent him to his people of 100,000 or more.
And back to his people that he left. For Allah Azza wa Jal gives the prophets the most complete set of actions. And subhanAllah, after he left early, Allah did not just let his people just to believe like that. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him back to make right the mistake that he made. And he go back and make it right. And that's the most complete etiquette that a person can have. And you made a mistake. Not only did he repent from his mistake, but he went back again into the place that he was sent from before. They say it's Nineveh, right, in Iraq.
فآمنوا فمتعناهم إلى حين. And they believed, so we gave them enjoyment of life for a time.
Now, here I want to see the meaning of the word aw here is also really interesting. He sent him to 100,000 or more. Or more. People differed a lot about the aw here. So some of them said aw means wa here. Yani 100,000 and more than that. Yani more than 100,000. But why use the word aw rather than use the word wa? If, for example, as an example, they were 101,000, for example. We sent him to 100,000 and more. That's one view. The other view is that the word aw means here that they were definitely not less than 100,000. And while there may have been more, there was certainly not less. So the meaning, maybe we would translate it as to 100,000 or more, certainly not less, something like that in brackets. Or more brackets, certainly not less. So it emphasizes the number, that they were at least 100,000.
فاستفتهم ألربك البنات ولهم البنون. So
before that, all of them believed. And we said this is the only people where the entire group of people that the Prophet was sent to believed. And there's never been a situation where everybody believed إِلَّا قَوْمَ Yunus, which is mentioned in Surah Yunus. At the end of Surah Yunus, no qarya believed completely except إِلَّا قَوْمَ Yunus.
فاستفتهم ألربك البنات ولهم البنون. So inquire of them, O Muhammad, does your Lord have daughters while they have sons? أم خلقنا الملائكة إناثا وهم شاهدون. Or did we create the angels as females while they were witnesses?
Now, first thing that Allah rebukes them for is Allah Azza wa Jalla rebukes them for saying that Allah has daughters and they have sons. And then Allah rebukes them for saying the angels are female. The angels don't have a gender that we are told about. We refer to them as men, in the male form of the word, but we're not told about the angels having gender like human beings have gender. Like we're not told that the angels are referred to in the male form. We say he, always. But we're not told about the angels having a gender like human beings, like the angels are girls or the angels are boys or the angels are, half of the angels are men and half are women. Allah Azza wa Jal did not tell us about this. Rather, the angels are described with the male form of the word because that's what Allah describes them with, but they are not described as being neither men in the sense of human men, nor are they described as female.
ألا إنهم من إفكهم ليقولون. Unquestionably, it is out of their invented falsehood that they say. وَلَدَ اللَّهُ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. Allah is begotten, and indeed they were liars.
That Allah has begotten, meaning Allah has sons or daughters, or a son or a daughter. That Allah has children now.
أَصْطَفَى الْبَنَاتِ عَلَى الْبَنِينَ. Has He chosen daughters over sons? مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. What is wrong with you? How do you make judgment?
How can you judge? How can you possibly judge that it is bad to have a daughter and then say that Allah has daughters?
أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Then will you not be reminded? أَمْ لَكُمْ سُلْطَانٌ مُبِينٌ. Or do you have a clear authority?
And do you have any evidence for what you say? Any scripture?
فَأْتُوا بِكِتَابِكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Then produce your scripture if you should be truthful.
No.
وَجَعَلُوا بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ الْجِنَّةِ نَسَبًا وَلَقَدْ عَلِمَتِ الْجِنَّةُ إِنَّهُمْ لَمُحْضَرُونَ. And they have made between him and the jinn a lineage, but the jinn have already known that they who made such claims will be brought to punishment.
So here, all of them translate this as the jinn. And that's strange, and I find it very strange that no one made a mention of the tafsir, which is the famous tafsir that the jinnah here are the angels. And so it's strange. It's not strange. The translation is fine because that's a view, but I find it strange that nobody made an ishara, nobody made a footnote or a commentary that the view is that the jinnah are a group of the angels. And here, nasab, it means that you believe that there is for want of a better word, like a blood relationship, a relationship of like family relations. And you made between Allah and the jinnah a nasab, that the jinnah are that the angels are the daughters of Allah. That's one view. You made it that they're the daughters of Allah. Another view that the jinnah here are the jinn, and that it is that some of them used to say that Allah, the angels are Allah's daughters through the female jinn. That there's something like that, the female jinn give birth to the angels or something like that. And they say, so here, there are two views. The jinnah are either the jinn or the jinnah are the angels. If the jinnah are the angels, that's not, it's easy to understand. Afwan. As-Sa'di takes the view regarding the jinn, that they said that the angels are the daughters of Allah through the jinn. Allah's daughters through the female jinn. There's a view that the jinnah in the first place are the angels. And the jinnah certainly know, the jinn themselves certainly know that the people who make this claim will be punished.
Subhanallahi amma yasifun. Exalted is Allah above what they describe. Illa ibadallahi al-mukhlasin, except the chosen servants of Allah who do not share in that sin.
Al-mukhlasin and al-mukhlisin.
فَإِنَّكُمْ وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ. So indeed, you disbelievers and whatever you worship. مَا أَنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ بِفَاتِنِينَ. You cannot tempt anyone away from him.
You cannot lure anyone away from him.
إِلَّا مَنْ هُوَ صَالِ الْجَحِيمِ. Except he who is to enter and burn in the hellfire.
Because of his disbelief.
وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. The angels say there is not among us any except that he has a known position.
Now the angels say, refuting what the disbelievers say. The angels say, refuting the statement of the disbelievers, that every one of us has a position and has an assigned task. And from here is the very important belief regarding Iman in the angels, that each of the angels is given an assigned, appointed, specific task to carry out.
وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الصَّافُّونَ. And indeed, we are those who line up for prayer.
And we line up in ranks for prayer. Just like the Muslims stand in rows for the prayer, the angels. I like to say, صُفُّوا كَمَا تَصُفُّ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Stand in your rows like the angels stand in their rows for prayer. And here, we already heard about As-Saffat, Saffat. So the beginning of the surah ties in with the end of the surah, that in the beginning Allah swears by the angels who stand in rows, and the angels themselves tell us we are the ones who stand in rows for prayer.
وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ. And indeed, we are those who exalt Allah.
And we exalt Allah, high is He above what the people say about Him falsely.
وَإِن كَانُوا لَيَقُولُونَ. And indeed, they used to say,
the disbelievers now, not the angels.
لو أن عندنا ذكرا من الأولين. And if we had a message from those of the former peoples.
And they said, if only we had a message like the early people had a message.
لكنا عباد الله المخلصين. we would have been the chosen servants of Allah.
And the reason we're not righteous people and chosen people is because we don't have a message like them. So when the message came to them from the Prophet ﷺ, they disbelieved in it.
فَكَفَرُوا بِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. But they disbelieved in it, so they are going to know.
And they disbelieved in the message of the Prophet ﷺ that was sent to them.
وَلَقَدْ سَبَقَتْ كَلِمَتُنَا لِعِبَادِنَا الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And our word has already proceeded for our servants, the messengers.
Now, that this word is the one that is explained in the next ayah. So our word has already gone forth, yani the decree of Allah, the word of Allah, that is what Allah Azza wa Jal spoke in His decree, which has already gone forward with regard to the messengers. And that word is
إِنَّهُمْ لَهُمُ الْمَنصُورُونَ. That indeed there will be those given victory.
that the messengers are going to be the ones who get victory.
وَإِنَّ جُندَنَا لَهُمُ الْغَالِبُونَ. And that indeed our soldiers will be those who overcome.
Yani the believers will be the ones who are victorious. Here there's a footnote that says, if not in the world, then definitely in the hereafter, but that's not needed. Because in reality, even in this world, if you look at the end of this world, before the time of the end of the world, yani the believers, and as long as they remain on this earth, yani the victory will always come back to the believers.
فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Say, O Muhammad, leave them for a time.
So, O Muhammad,
O Muhammad, leave them for a time.
leave them for a time. And he turn away from them. That is what the Prophet ﷺ was commanded in Mecca. In Mecca, if you look at Mecca, what is he commanded to do in the time period in Mecca? Tawalla anhum. Don't fight them. It's not the time to kill them now. It's not the time for a battle. Tawalla anhum for a while. Soon the command will come for you to fight them.
وَأَبْصِرْهُمْ فَسَوْفَ يُبْصِرُونَ. And see what will befall them, for they are going to see.
And he wait for a while, and then see what the end result of these people is going to be, because you are going to see what's going to happen to them in the battle of Badr and elsewhere.
أَفَبِعَذَابِنَا يَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. Then for our punishment are they impatient. فَإِذَا نَزَلَ بِسَاحَتِهِمْ فَسَاءَ صَبَاحُ الْمُنذَرِينَ. But when it descends in their territory, then evil is the morning of those who are warned.
Instead of territory, if it said courtyard here, it would be much better. Because that's what the word the saha is, the courtyard. And it's as though Allah is saying to them directly, when this punishment is going to land outside of your house, right on the outside of your house, then what an evil morning it will be for the people who were warned and didn't take the warning.
وَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ حَتَّى حِينٍ. And leave them for a time. وَأَبْصِرْ فَسَوْفَ يُبْصِرُونَ. And see, for they are going to see. سُبْحَانَ رَبِّكَ رَبِّ الْعِزَّةِ عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ. Exalted is your Lord, the Lord of might, above what they describe.
So these next three ayat are very important in the principles of Al-Asma wa Sifat. And they are mentioned at the beginning of Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. It's very important. The ayah begins, Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. So Allah frees Himself of everyone who describes Him with a way that is not based upon what He said about Himself and what the Messenger ﷺ said about Him. For Allah Azza wa Jal declares Himself free, Subhana Rabbik, and your Lord has nothing to do with anyone who describes Him in a way that is other than what He said about Himself. Now,
وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And peace upon the messenger.
Salam. Here, very important.
Salam.
Peace, you lose all the meaning of the ayah.
And salam upon the messengers.
وَسَلام upon the messengers. Why? لِسَلَامَةِ عَقِيدَتِهِمْ. Because of the correctness of their aqidah as it relates to Allah. And this is clear from the ayah. Why? Because Allah before that, He says, I have nothing to do with people who describe me. يَصِفُونَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ. But I support the description how the prophets describe me. Now, that is where salama is. And the salam here is salama. It's very important. Yani it's salim min al-aib. It doesn't have any uyub in it. It doesn't have any flaws in it. And there, the ways the prophets described me, that's the correct way.
وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And praise to Allah, Lord of the worlds.
So praise is to praise Allah for what He said about Himself and what the Prophet ﷺ said about Him. So these ayat, if we take them together, what do we take? أن نصف الله بما وصف به نفسه وما وصف به رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. That's the first thing. That we describe Allah the way that Allah described Himself and the way that the Prophet ﷺ described Him. The way that Allah described Himself, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The way the Prophet ﷺ described Him, Salamun ala al-Mursaleen. And that we distance ourselves from every kind of deviation in describing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. That Allah has nothing to do with the way these people describe. For likewise, everyone who deviated in the names and attributes of Allah has a share of that. Yani the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira and the Maturidiyya and all those who took their way. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Allah is free of what they describe Him with. وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Go back to describing Allah the way that He described Himself and the way the Prophets ﷺ described Him. For no doubt, they're not the same. The Jahmiyyah are not the same. They are the worst of them. Like all of them described Allah with something other than the way of the Prophets. And if you want to gather all these groups together, the mulhideen, fi asma'illahi wa sifatih, those who deviated in Allah's names and attributes, every single one of them, their crime is that they did not describe Allah in the way that the Prophet ﷺ described Allah and the way that Allah described Himself. They were not satisfied when Allah said, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, the most merciful rose over the throne. So instead of sticking to what the Prophet ﷺ said, they went away from the salama, the safety, which is, safety is in what? Safety is in describing Allah the way the Prophet ﷺ described Him. وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And he praised Allah for His names and His attributes and His actions that Allah describes Himself with and that the Prophet ﷺ described Him with, and negate about Allah what Allah negates about Himself and what His Messenger ﷺ negated about Him. So when Allah says something is not true, like He doesn't have daughters, so you must also say it. And when the Prophet ﷺ said something is not true about Allah, you must also say that it's not true, while affirming the perfect opposite. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, that also it can be taken from there. And affirming the perfect opposite. And whoever wants to know more about that, let them read Al-Aqidah Al-Wasitiyah by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, which is based around it starts with these ayat. And it's based, the beginning introduction, it's based around this, the salama, salamatu aqidati al-mursaleen. That the mursaleen, they are the ones who their aqidah was salima. If you want to look at the true aqidah, like the aqidah of the Muslims, the belief that is proper belief, وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ. That's the proper belief. The belief is that the salamat al-mu'taqad is with the mursaleen. It's not with Jahm ibn Safwan and Al-Ja'd ibn Dirham, those people who followed them. Neither is it with Aristotle or the Greeks or the Romans. The salama, if you want to have an aqidah that is safe, safety in aqidah comes from al-mursaleen. It comes from the messengers. and following them. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. What time is Maghrib?
49.
It is?
49.
نعم نكتفي بهذا إن شاء الله, because I think it's not going to be as beneficial for people to start Surah Sad. But I mean, when we're getting to the end here, there's going to be a little challenge for us, which is going to be the ayat become much shorter, especially when we get to Surah Qaf. The ayat are going to become very, very short. So it was good if you're reading from, instead of like swapping between, when you're just reading from that one, from the digital copy, where you just read the digital copy and the same way, we're going to read Arabic and then English and then explanation. But it's just we have to be a little bit quick, as we did today, because of the fact that the ayat are very, very short. So it takes a lot. If you're swapping between, it takes a long time. So we reach page now 453 in the Mus'haf, right? It's the beginning of Surah Sad. And we're supposed to be, ideally, we would be into Surah, beginning Surah Jathiyah. Where's Surah Jathiyah? What page is it? $499. And so so we're like running short by about 40 pages or a bit more than that. 45 pages roughly. Not quite. That's a bit, even Surah Jathiyah is a bit too far. We're about 40 pages behind where we should be. But that's not too bad. That's 2 days worth of catch up, inshallah. That's what Allah made easy for us to mention. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.